Dragon Clan. Mingfei Returns from Warhammer 40,000. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1: Return from Despair. Mingfei suddenly woke up and subconsciously wanted to grab the chainsaw, sword and bolt pistol beside him. But he grabbed nothing. Although the surroundings were dim, there was no smell of blood, no gunshots, no alien roars, only peace and tranquility. The bright moonlight fell on the windowsill, and unknown creatures were chirping in the green trees and plants outside the window. There was the sound of mechanical operation in his ears, which kept the place where he was at a comfortable temperature. Where is this? The room layout of the Mother of Tears is not like this. My head hurts. Those damn bugs. Mingfei hugged his head in pain, as if a knife was stirring in his mind. He felt the weakness of his soul and began to pray in a low voice to obey the oath. I swear to serve you, the great emperor of mankind. Everything I have is at your disposal, because my faith is unshakable. I will fight to protect mankind for the rest of my life, because I am the loyal son of St. Jeremiah. After a long time, he calmed down and released his palm. In a daze, Mingfei noticed the image on the glowing screen in front of him. On the dirty and filthy fungal blanket, ugly and disgusting creatures produced one hideous and blasphemous creature after another. Mingfei's breathing suddenly became rapid, and his thoughts, which had just calmed down, were churning again. Images flashed rapidly in his mind. The hideous alien insects were sweeping all over the mountains and plains like a tide, and one brother after another was torn to pieces and swallowed by the swarm of insects. In the end, he was the only one left, roaring for the Emperor and launching a desperate charge against the swarm of insects. Bang! Mingfei was awakened by the sudden sound in his sleep. Turning on the light, he saw his cousin with a fierce look on his face as if he was going to kill someone. And the old laptop screen that the two of them shared had a hole in it, and it was hanging on Mingfei's arm at this time. 027 on April 22, 2007. Mingfei. What are you doing in the middle of the night? Not only did you secretly play games, but you also smashed the computer like this. Do you know how much it will cost to buy a new one? Can't you spare me some worry? Minx has to use the computer to study tomorrow. The aunt in pajamas looked at Mingfei with a frown and angrily scolded him. But Mingfei just sat there with a dull expression and lowered his head, not saying a word. He was even unaware of the bleeding wound on his arm caused by the screen fragments. In the end, the uncle who was yawning repeatedly noticed that something was wrong with Mingfei, and pulled back the aunt who was about to scold him again after drinking a large glass of water. Okay, stop scolding, can't you see that Mingfei is not in a good mental state? Could it be that he has become mentally ill due to the recent pressure of studying? If he is mentally ill, he can't smash the computer. The aunt glared at him. Okay, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the neighbors if you make a scene here in the middle of the night? Hector's uncle yawned again. He was so sleepy. I admire you very much. You really don't know how expensive food and fuel are. Do you know how much a laptop costs? Auntie grumbled in dissatisfaction. Mom. What should I do if I need a computer tomorrow? Mingfei shouted. I know. I'll take you to the computer city to get a new one tomorrow, okay? Mingfei's chubby round face showed a hint of joy. He had wanted to replace this old and backward IBM laptop for a long time. But he couldn't say it. He didn't expect that his cousin's sudden madness tonight would make him get what he wanted. After saying that, Auntie looked at Mingfei again. The money for buying a computer will be deducted from your living expenses. And your pocket money will also be cancelled. After turning off the lights, Uncle, Auntie and cousin went back to their rooms to continue sleeping. Because of Mingfei's unstable mental state, Mingfei locked the door, fearing that his head would be hit next. The living room returned to darkness and calm, leaving only Mingfei sitting in the chair. After a long time, his body trembled slightly, and clear tears silently slid down his face. The tear glands were no longer cold organs that were activated only after special modifications to protect the eyes, but a real expression of human emotions. It's not the illusion of the evil god, I'm really back. He finally returned to his hometown that he had been dreaming about. For this, Mingfei has been waiting for too long. It started from his soul going to the desperate universe and becoming a human slave tortured by orcs. He was like a walking corpse, and he survived 3 years of struggling in purgatory every day. Until one day, a group of noble warriors like angels landed on this planet and fought a bloody battle with the orcs of the entire planet for their humble slaves who were not even as good as ants. He witnessed these noble warriors unwilling to abandon them and determined to evacuate them, causing rivers of blood. He witnessed the human slaves who did not want these noble warriors to be buried with them, and collectively knelt down and begged them to take their children and evacuate this hell, willing to die. He witnessed a weeper warrior being beheaded by an orc to save him. After being lucky enough to evacuate with the weepers, Mingfei did not feel any joy, and spent every day in painful regret. "You are all fools to die to save a waste like me." He began to self-abuse and demanded training himself, from a miscellaneous servant to a war group servant. Then he was chosen by the Weeks war group leader to inherit the gene seed and glory of the Weeks warrior who died for him and become an ostatives. "Why did you choose a waste like me, Destiny? Maybe it's your eyes, I saw his shadow. I want you to inherit his seed and let our brothers return in another way." After enduring 19 body modification operations and various cruel trials, Mingfei changed from a short and thin slave to a warrior with a superhuman body of nearly 3 meters tall, ostatives. He was also called the Emperor's Angel of Death by mortals in awe. In the following 107 years of tragic expedition, Mingfei fought his way out of the sea of blood and became the champion warrior of the Lamenters. Together with his fellow brothers, he faced all evil enemies with lofty beliefs and will. Until the end, in order to ensure the evacuation of tens of thousands of humans, the war group launched a tragic ground battle with the Zeg-Hide fleet that wanted to devour the entire planet's biomass. In order to cover the safe evacuation of his brothers and human refugees, Mingfei led a tactical team to cover the rear and faced the Tyranids that were tens of thousands times larger than his own. "I thought I would sleep forever and return to the Golden Throne. But I never thought I would return to my hometown. That man is my uncle, that woman." Mingfei tried hard to dig out the connection between the 2 men and 1 woman and himself from the dusty memory. Time can make people forget a lot, especially for Mingfei, who has fought bloody battles with vicious enemies in the universe for nearly 100 years. His impression of his hometown is that this is a paradise world without war. And he has parents and relatives there. After thinking for a long time, Mingfei got up and walked to the bathroom. Clumsily groping for the switch to turn on the light, Mingfei simply cleaned the wound on his arm. His arm was thin and weak, no longer the killing weapon with hideous muscles and violent power that could pull out the alien insect head and spine together. After handling it, he raised his head and saw his immature face in the mirror. Now he is only 16 years old. And here is a peaceful society that pursues science and progress and has perfect laws to protect citizens. Different from that, although it has a magnificent history of 40,000 years and its territory covers most of the galaxy, it is a dystopian and decadent human empire that combines highly centralized power, religious rule, extreme militarism, and extreme xenophobia. "I need to adapt to this society again." Mingfei took a deep breath, feeling lucky that he had controlled his emotions. Most Ostatives warriors and chapters were indifferent or even disgusted with ordinary people. Even before undergoing the transformation surgery, they were ordinary people. Fortunately, the Weeks were one of the few chapters that were particularly gentle to mortals. In addition, before becoming the chapter champion, Mingfei had also served as a holy blood priest of the chapter, so under normal circumstances, he could control his emotions well. If it were an Ostatives warrior from another chapter, I'm afraid that my uncle's family would have been killed on the spot just now. Chapter 2 Prologue. Rain falls and flows. Leaden clouds covered the sky of this coastal city. Lightning swam in this dark ocean like silver snakes, and occasionally issued a deafening roar to the world. After that, the ocean fell from the sky. Shuzaham stood at the door of the classroom, looking at the car show in the storm on the playground. Originally, Shilan High School did not allow private cars to enter the campus, but in such bad weather, all parents were worried that their precious children would get wet. In the excitement, a few angry parents directly pushed the big iron gate open, and all the cars swarmed in. The lights from all directions illuminated the dense rain on the rainy night, and the ups and downs of the horns were chaotic and harsh, like a no-name band composed of laymen, which was irritating to listen to. Parents and students wearing raincoats were like headless flies bumping around in this car show. After about half an hour, the parents who found their children drove away one after another. Only the shattered grass was left, and the yellow mud fled along with the flow of the rain waterfall. The phone vibrated, and a new text message was received. Shuzaham took it out and read it, then silently deleted it and put it back in his pocket, and continued to stare blankly at the silver waterfall outside the eaves. There were several people who took shelter from the rain like him, such as the two girls outside the corridor on the second floor, and the junior boy carrying a worn canvas bag not far away under the eaves. Shusaham recognized the boy, who had made quite a stir in the school recently. He thought for a while, then walked to the other side and took the initiative to say hello. "Hello, classmate." He rarely did this. Although he was not a cold-faced evil star who kept people away from him, he was definitely not a self-acquainted person. There were not many people in the entire Shilan Middle School who dared to talk to him, let alone him taking the initiative to talk to others. As for why he did this, Shusaham couldn't explain it clearly. Perhaps he felt a special temperament from the other party, or he didn't want to stand there in a daze during this time of sheltering from the rain. "Hello. I'm Mingfei." The other party turned his head and gave a gentle and polite smile and introduced himself, and continued to look at the rain curtain outside that was tilted by the stronger wind. "I know you. You sent several people to the hospital last week," Shusaham said. "The rain is a bit heavy, and it will probably take a long time to stop." Mingfei just nodded and didn't care about it. "The rain won't stop. The weather station sent a warning message 20 minutes ago. The typhoon is going to land directly." "Is that so?" Mingfei's expression didn't change much. He just stretched out his hand, and the rain splashed on his hand. "If the rain doesn't stop, then how are you going to get back?" Shusaham asked. "Run back, leave the things here, and come back to get them tomorrow." Shusaham glanced at the heavy rain outside that seemed to be swallowing up the whole world. "My father will come to pick me up later. If you want, I can give you a ride." Mingfei thought for a moment, and then showed a gentle smile. "Well, thank you, I owe you a favor. Then I can try to assemble this thing when I go back tonight." He shook the warm canvas back behind him, making a crisp metal collision sound. Shusaham then turned his attention to the warm canvas back behind Mingfei. The bag looked heavy, and he didn't know what was in it. He noticed that there was a piece of black oil on the bottom of the bag. He suddenly remembered that he had seen Mingfei several times before. The other party often went in and out of the utility room with a school worker. Once, he was seen holding an electric saw and cutting greenery with a school worker. Boys of this age are either concentrating on studying or trying to maintain their image to attract the attention of the girls they like. People like Mingfei are really different. But Shusaham quickly threw these thoughts out of his mind. He didn't like to over-infer and understand others. Two white lights pierced the rain curtain of the playground like a sharp sword and shone on the bottom floor of the teaching building. A vigorous black beast appeared in the sight of Shusaham and Mingfei. The shiny car logo is two MS overlapping in the shape of a mountain on the front of the car shone brightly in the heavy rain. With a dull roar, the black beast slowed down and approached Shusaham and the others to avoid stirring up too high a water curtain. "This is a Maybach, the top car of the Mercedes-Benz factory." Shusaham is not keen on cars. These are all boasted to him by the man in the car. He glanced at Mingfei beside him from the corner of his eye. The other party was also looking at the luxurious black car, but his face did not show much expression. The man driving the black beast walked out with an equally black umbrella and walked to the eaves with difficulty in the violent wind and rain. "Is this your friend?" The man seemed a little surprised and glanced at Mingfei a few more times. "Do I need your consent?" Although Shusaham's tone was calm, everyone could tell that his words were a bit aggressive. "Of course not. I'm just happy to see my son making friends." The man laughed and didn't care. He turned his head and looked at Mingfei again, his eyebrows dancing. "Where do you live, handsome boy? I'll take you and Saham back together. The typhoon landed tonight, and it's windy and rainy. It's absolutely safe to take my car. Then I'll trouble you, uncle. May the Emperor, may you be healthy and have smooth sailing." Mingfei bowed slightly to thank him. The man was stunned, then laughed. "You're such a polite friend, ha 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 ha, come on, get in the car." Shusaham ignored the man and got into the back seat of the car in the rain. Mingfei gave the man a polite smile and quickly got into the car with a warm canvas bag. The man had to sit back in the driver's seat and put away his umbrella. The black beast roared again, tearing through the rain curtain and driving straight out of the gate of Shilan Middle School. On the second floor of the teaching building, two girls who were taking shelter from the rain witnessed the departure of the luxury car. "Why hasn't my car come yet? What time is it now?" "Don't worry, it should be here soon. If only the rain could come later. It can rain as much as it wants when I get home. It's late enough, this rain should have fallen 3 years ago." Their voices drifted into the rainy night, and then were shattered by the rolling thunder and completely dissipated. It's raining so hard, your mother didn't know to pick you up. Fortunately, I didn't go to wash the car this morning. The black Maybach galloped all the way in the heavy rain. The man started his topic while fiddling with the steering wheel in a chic manner. During this time, he glanced at Shuzaham's classmate from the rearview mirror. The other party was lying on a comfortable and warm sofa chair. It was unknown whether he was asleep or resting with his eyes closed. He didn't react to his topic. But Shuzaham didn't react. He turned his head and looked at the dense raindrops that smashed on the car window one after another. Time flies so fast. You're already 18 years old and an adult. Don't relax in the second year of high school. Try your best to finish the third year. With your intelligence and talent, you can choose any university in China. It's okay if you don't go abroad. Isn't it popular to study abroad now? When the time comes, let your mother help you pick a school from the Ivy League. Damn, it's so congested. The man drove that black beast in various exquisite and beautiful techniques to swim freely in the traffic flow, leaving a lot of drivers who were overtaken by him to lower their windows and curse loudly. Until the traffic in front of the collision accident was completely blocked. The man looked around and his eyes fell on the fork in the rain. A fork in the road that was a little abrupt on the elevated road was only one step away from them, and the road sign was blocked by the dancing branches of a willow tree. And brother Mingfei, who was thinking with his eyes closed, seemed to hear someone calling him in a low voice. Brother. The voice sounded in his ears, becoming clearer and clearer. He opened his eyes and saw a boy sitting next to him. Brother, you still have time to get off the bus now. The boy looked into his eyes and said softly. Chapter 3 Alien. Alien. Please read on. Mingfei looked around to make sure he was still in the warm and comfortable four-wheel vehicle. But time seemed to have stopped. He could see the stagnant raindrops and mist on the car window. The boy was sitting between him and Shuzahan. Who are you? Mingfei was alert and grabbed the canvas backing his arms. Brother, you still have time to get off the car now. Your name is not on the invitation list for the funeral. The boy said softly. He was wearing a black evening dress with a white tie on his collar. His delicate face was full of sadness. But the next moment, he was locked by a strong hand, and Mingfei's fierce and cold face was reflected in his eyes. Shut up. Mingfei did not show mercy because of the other party's appearance as a child. They, the descendants of the holy angels of the great Gene Father, have always been the target of the Chaos heretics. Therefore, in that cold universe, Mingfei had experienced thousands of illusions that tempted him to embrace chaos and fall into the abyss. His will had long been as unshakable as pure gold. Ahem, you have changed so much, brother. Where is that poor kid who wanted to be loved? Although his throat was strangled, the boy still smiled gently and spoke to him softly. I said shut up. Mingfei shouted coldly, increasing the strength of his hand, trying to drive this illusion out of his world. But the boy was not affected much. His eyes became extremely deep, as if he wanted to see through Mingfei. After a moment, he sighed faintly, and his figure gradually became blurred and illusory. Since you insist on attending this funeral, then it will be as you wish, brother. I am looking forward to the performance of your unyielding soul in front of him. The devil's whisper floated in the air. Time returned to normal from this moment, and rain flowed down the car window, and immediately countless raindrops exploded on the car window. The traffic jam seemed to have been handled, and the black beast was speeding again in the storm. I heard that you had a big party on your 18th birthday. That was really impressive. That's good too. Meet more friends, smile, don't always look so cold. The man driving the car was still mumbling various questions and instructions to Shuzahan. But Shuzahan didn't seem to have any desire to communicate with his father, and kept looking out the window. They didn't seem to notice Mingfei's strangeness just now. Bang, bang. Suddenly, there was a knock on Shuzahan's door. Shuzahan was stunned for a moment, and then a look of horror appeared on his face. This Maybach was running at a speed of 120 miles per hour on the elevated road. Who would knock on the door at this time? The knock on the door sounded again, and this time it seemed that 4 or 5 people were knocking at the same time. No, not like. Shuzahan really saw 4 or 5 dark shadows lying outside the dark car window, as if they were staring at him in the storm. What are those things? A sense of crisis rose in Mingfei's heart. Could it be a trap set by the devil just now? Shu Tianzhao also noticed Shuzahan's expression and whispered, "Son, don't be afraid, sit tight." The pointer on the cold blue dashboard showed that the speed was rising continuously, breaking the speed limit in a moment and reaching 180 miles per hour. But the people in the car only felt that they were staying in the same place. The car did not vibrate, did not make any sound, and did not have any inertia. It seemed that only the sound of the heavy rain pouring on the roof was real. Maybach was still accelerating madly, accelerating. There were more and more black shadows. Under the projection of the unknown mercury light source, they silently surrounded Maybach and opened their eyes together. It was like countless pairs of golden fireflies flying in the dark. Shusaham hugged his head in pain and curled up. Bang 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 bang, the black shadows began to knock on the car window again, and pale palms could be vaguely seen on the glass. Go away. Go away. Shusaham waved his hands in fear, as if he wanted to drive these black shadows away. Son, don't be afraid, I'm here. Shu Tianzhao gripped the steering wheel with both hands and comforted him. His eyes were fixed on the front. Sorry, uncle, I'm going to dirty your car. Shusaham suddenly heard Lu Mingfei say this. He then remembered that in addition to himself and his father, there was another unfamiliar classmate sitting in the car. It's okay, classmate Lu Mingfei, if you want to pee, just pee. You're already very brave. Shu Tianzhao said in a comforting tone. Lu Mingfei didn't answer. He opened the canvas back in his arms and poured all the contents on the leather sofa chair. There were all kinds of tools and mechanical components, wrenches, screwdrivers, switch handles, metal frames, small engines, centrifugal clutches. The other party threw away the canvas back and began to assemble these components one by one, with only concentration on his face. Are you assembling a chainsaw? Shusaham watched the other party pick up a cutting chain covered with sharp teeth, and quickly and skillfully combined and fixed it with the sprocket and guide rod. The saw blade of the chainsaw was formed. What's going on? Is he trying to play that Texas Chainsaw Massacre on a rainy night? Almost. Lu Mingfei just whispered in response. Shusaham wanted to ask something else, but a sharp and piercing sound suddenly rang in his ears. It was like something sharp scratching on steel and glass, making people's scalps numb. Shu Tianzhao grabbed Shusaham's wrist with his backhand, pulled him from the back seat to the front seat, and threw him on the passenger seat. Fasten your seatbelt. Shu Tianzhao's face was as hard as iron. But Shusaham just hugged his head in pain, his body shaking uncontrollably. Did you see the hallucination? I'm sorry, I always hope that this day will come later. The father held his son's hand tightly and revealed to him the dark side behind that curtain of this peaceful world. The speed of Maybach has soared to the limit of 275 kilometers per hour, and the needle of the engine tachometer has jumped into the dangerous red zone. There is only mercury light in front, and nothing can be seen clearly, as if running towards a silver sea. But the shadows are still hitting the car windows from all directions. Shu Tianzhao pulled something out of the car door. It was a slender Japanese sword, and the clear blade slid out of the black scabbard. The middle-aged man who was driving and talking about his son's affairs actually exuded a sharp aura like the long sword in his hand. The veins on his wrist were throbbing, and he pierced the left door with the knife. He dragged the Maybach, as if he had really turned into a ferocious black beast, dodging and moving in the heavy rain. The half-exposed blade was its sharp teeth, tearing apart the black shadows that entangled it, and then smashing and crushing them with its heavy body and limbs. The black blood splashed all over the car window and even seeped in from the gap. Shusaham's face was pale, and he said in a trembling voice, You are killing people. Before Shu Tianzhao could answer, Lu Mingfei's cold words rang out from the back seat of the car. No, they are aliens. Lu Mingfei didn't know when he had assembled his weapon, a handheld electric saw with a handle. A metal cover was added to the top of the saw blade, revealing only one sharp saw tooth. The engine that formed the power part was installed under the handle, making it look more concise as a whole, a combination of an electric saw and a machete. Lu Mingfei's aura also changed. From the moment he held this weapon in his hand, he changed from a hard-working student to a veteran who had fought his way out of the dark battlefield. His eyes reflected his monstrous hatred for the dark shadows outside the window. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 4 Odeon. The nightmare-like images were still floating in Shusaham's mind, and they could not be dispersed for a long time. He felt that the world in front of him became more and more unreal and weird. A group of shadowy shadows were entangled with the Maybach that was speeding to the limit. The useless driver father who drove for the boss suddenly pulled out a sword named Murazame, showing its sharp edge. The famous coward in the school rubbed out an electric saw with his hands, and looked at the black shadows outside the window with eyes as fierce as a murderer. Shu Tianzhao was also surprised by Lu Mingfei's performance, but did not ask for the truth. He drugged this black beast to knock away one black shadow after another, and then turned around and ran away. "We have to find the exit quickly," he said in a deep voice. Obviously, he didn't want to continue to entangle with these things. What are you doing?" Shu Ziham noticed that Lu Mingfei had made a new move. He held the electric saw horizontally in front of him with one hand, and a thumb-sized incense burner appeared in the palm of his other hand. "Awaken the machine soul." "What is that?" Shu Ziham was puzzled, but Lu Mingfei did not answer. He closed his eyes, and began to chant the mysterious ballad with a pious look. The incense burner swayed on the crude saw blade, emitting thin white smoke and a strange smell. As an aesthetes, assembling, repairing, and maintaining one's own weapons are the most basic training. So it was not difficult for Lu Mingfei to assemble a simple version of the chainsaw sword with his bare hands. He originally just wanted to collect it for nostalgia, but he didn't expect to use this weapon so soon. But he is not the Superman body of the aesthetes who has undergone 19 surgeries. The chainsaw sword in his hand does not have the Empire's black technology such as single-molecule saw teeth and Promethean fuel-driven engines. It is just modified from an electric saw that is difficult to saw wood. Whether it can deal with the aliens outside the car is still unknown. You can only rely on the awakening of the machine soul to enhance it. Are all the students in your school so versatile? Shu Tianzhao looked strange, but then he relaxed. "But compared to us, you're a normal person. Don't think your father is a lunatic. Our bloodline is just different from that of ordinary people. Have you seen Dragon Ball? The children born from Saiyans and Earthlings are Super Saiyans. Of course I'm not an alien. Actually, it's not bad to go abroad. Remember not to apply to a college called Castle, and let your mother pick one from the Ivy League." They ran for more than 10 minutes, and they had run more than 40 kilometers at a speed of more than 10 minutes. The black shadow did not catch up, and the mercury-colored light disappeared. Shu Ziham's pounding heart gradually returned to normal, and Shu Tianzhao started to chatter again, trying to ease the solemn atmosphere. But Shu Ziham could see that the tension on his face had not eased at all, and his foot was still pressing the accelerator. It was not until he saw the speed reduction sign flashing by the roadside indicating that there was a toll station 1 kilometer ahead, and a bright white light emerged from the darkness in the distance that Shu Tianzhao breathed a sigh of relief. But the car suddenly slowed down the next moment. The bright white light not only exuded warmth, but also solemnity and grandeur, just like a pilgrim meeting a god. The god stood in the white holy light. He was wearing a heavy dark golden armor, and the rain sprinkled on it, and the armor seemed to be covered with a layer of light. The golden pupil, like a giant lamp, illuminated the patterns on the metal mask on his face. The horse under him, as majestic as a mountain, was draped in heavy armor with intricate metal patterns, and the white fur flowed with a crystal-like glow. The 8 majestic horse legs were like the brackets used by a wheeled crane to stabilize the body, giving people an unparalleled visual impact. Shu Ziham's worldview completely collapsed at this moment. Odin, the chief god of the Asgardians in Norse mythology, appeared in front of him. The pressure that seemed to come from the depths of his soul made his body tremble uncontrollably. "It's okay, don't be afraid," Shu Tianzhao whispered. Perhaps for the safety of his son sitting in the passenger seat, the man did not drive the car into the god Sleipnir, but chose to stop slowly. Groups of black shadows walked out from behind Odin, like a group of priests who are going to hold a mass. They surrounded the Maybach from all sides, all dressed in black, with a pair of empty eyes on their pale faces shining with golden light. "Get out of the car." Shu Tianzhao pulled out the long knife embedded in the car door, reached out with one hand to hold the soul-destroying Shu Ziham, and got out of the Maybach. Shu Ziham held the man's hand tightly. He had never felt that his father was so tall and unshakable like a mountain. What about him? Shu Ziham looked at Lu Mingfei, who was still chanting an unknown ballad with his eyes closed in the back seat, and said timidly, "It's okay, it's safe in the car." Shu Tianzhao comforted, staring at the towering god in the rain. The 8-legged horse Sleipnir roared with thunder, and the nostrils of the metal mask sprayed out lightning. The shadows approached the father and son, and their golden hollow pupils revealed desire and greed. Perhaps in the next moment, this group of strange pilgrims will tear the father and son into pieces and cook them as a sacrifice to the gods. But the gods have not allowed them to do so yet. "See you, human." Odin's low voice came from the rain. "I know what you want." Shu Tianzhao looked up at the towering shadow sitting on Sleipnir and said calmly, If I give you something, can you let us go? I will promise you eternal life in this kingdom of God. Odin said, his words like thunder. Like these things? Become a monster without reason? Shu Tianzhao pointed the tip of his knife at the shadows. No, your bloodline is far superior to theirs, and you will become God's priests. Anyone who has been to the kingdom of God will have its doors open to him, because he must become a servant of God. Okay. Go take out the box in the trunk, it's black, with a silver mark on it. Shu Tianzhao sighed and touched Xu Zhang's head. There was indeed a black suitcase in the trunk, the special leather surface was rough and tough. On it was a silver nameplate, engraved with a lushly growing world tree. Xu Zhang took it out trembling in the surrounding shadows, he could hear the low hissing of the shadows. Human, this sweet smell, thirst, there's another one inside. Xu Zhang ran to his father's side with the box in his arms in fear, only in this way could he get a sense of security. But Lu Mingfei, he glanced behind him with the corner of his eye, the greedy golden pupils of those shadows had already aimed at Lu Mingfei who was still chanting in a low voice in the car. Then, they slowly moved closer. I don't know whether to say it's an honor or misfortune, we mortals are actually being watched out by the gods. Shu Tianzhao took the suitcase and smiled bigly. See you, human. The gods will promise to give you eternal life. Odin spoke again, waiting for the tribute from the mortals. Son, you must listen to me next. Shu Tianzhao lowered his head slightly, leaned close to Xu Zhang's ear and whispered. Don't leave me, but don't get too close, drive immediately after getting in the car. I know you got your driver's license last summer vacation. Go ahead and drive, don't be afraid of scratches. I have tried hard to stay away from you and your mother over the years, just because I don't want to involve you. Xu Zhang listened to the whispers in his ear in a daze, tears and rain mixed on his face. He had a feeling that his father was telling him his last words. The encirclement of the shadows was shrinking, and the roars were getting more and more impatient, like a hungry hyena staring at its prey. This was Odin's impatience. Boom. At this moment, the Maybach surrounded by a group of black shadows suddenly roared. The work has been submitted to the trial court for signature, waiting for loyalty certification. All the Emperor's angels of death can invest now. Chapter 5 Man and Soul. It was the roar of a chainsaw, tearing the dead silence of the rainy night. Bang. The rear door of the Maybach was kicked open, and Lu Mingfei rushed out as swiftly as a cheetah. A black shadow closest to him let out a piercing howl, and the next moment, the roaring chainsaw sword in Lu Mingfei's hand fell on its head. The saw blade spun wildly and cut the black shadow's tough body, and the pouring rain could not drown the sparks that flew everywhere for a while. Two nearby black shadows pounced fiercely, and their bodies twisted into two flying venomous snakes at an astonishing speed. But Lu Mingfei's combat instinct was amazingly sharp. He stepped on the body of the alien black shadow whose head was sawed in half, and used the force to pull out the chainsaw sword while turning over and jumping onto the roof of the Maybach, avoiding the attack of the two aliens. But even with such serious injuries, the alien was still alive. It screamed in pain, like a mad, deformed four-clawed spider, its body and limbs twisting wildly in accordance with its bloodthirsty instinct. It knocked back several of its own kind, and climbed onto the roof of the car with all four limbs, trying to tear the human into pieces and eat it, but it missed. The next second, the roaring chainsaw sword in Lu Mingfei's hand pierced its back and the roof of the Maybach. The saw blade cut all the way up and completed a bloody merger with the wound on the head. Thick and smelly black blood gushed out like a burst water pipe. Until the alien body under his feet stopped twisting and completely lost its vitality. Lu Mingfei raised his head and looked around at the group of black shadows. They did not disturb the execution he had just done. A pair of dark golden eyes revealed an emotion mixed with fear and greed. Suddenly, the scenes overlapped, and Lu Mingfei seemed to have returned to the dark days when he fought for loyalty in the Weepers. Just like now, proudly looking directly at the alien enemies that are tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands times larger than themselves, there are crazy green-skinned orcs, dirty and ugly alien insects, and hideous demons from the dark abyss. They get only one response. Face the sons of St. Jareth, aliens. Lu Mingfei roared loudly, his eyes shining with a dazzling light like gold. The chainsaw sword in his hand roared autonomously, responding to its master. After bathing in the blood of the aliens, the new machine soul revealed an excitement. Since the 23rd millennium, when the golden age of human prosperity was broken by the rebellion caused by artificial intelligence, humans have strictly prohibited the development of artificial intelligence technology. It has become a taboo since the human empire period. However, the universe is an idealistic universe where everything has a soul, and everything has a soul projection. Mechanical creations are no exception, from small chainsaw swords and grenade guns to large war vehicles, night-jays, titans, space battleships. They can all awaken and give birth to their own machine souls. From a physical perspective, the machine soul is equivalent to the name of a mechanical automation system. For example, the machine souls of tanks or fighter planes can take over the control of the body and continue to fight in the absence of the driver. But from another perspective, these machine souls do have their own emotions and are no longer a simple product of religious worship. For example, the machine souls of Titans, a divine machine, are violent and wild. After each awakening, these powerful machine souls need to be appeased and trusted through various complex rituals such as incense, holy oil, and binary prayers, in order to avoid the captain's consciousness being directly defeated during driving. The machine souls of small mechanical creations also need to be appeased and maintained, and their way of expressing emotions is more direct. If the grenade gun jams after firing a shot, it means that the machine soul is unhappy. If it does not overheat after firing for a whole day and even fires 15 bullets from an 11-round magazine, it means that the machine soul is very happy. Just like Mingfei's simple chainsaw sword, which was mainly assembled by disassembling and assembling electric saws, can kill the Black Shadow alien, it is also blessed by the new machine soul. Mingfei's sudden outburst attracted the attention of all the Black Shadows. Even the god sitting on Slatenir, with his golden eyes like giant lamps, stared at the figure fighting in a group of shadows. "Son, run!" Shu Tianzhao seized this opportunity and suddenly shouted angrily. Shu Ziham didn't even think about it, and turned around and ran towards the Maybach like crazy. Before the shadows intercepted him, he threw the suitcase in the direction of Odion, like a piece of fresh meat to attract wolves. After the suitcase was out of his hand, he immediately followed Shu Ziham to run towards the car, where the shadows still needed to be cleared. Shu Tianzhao looked back and saw that most of the shadows were attracted by the suitcase and swarmed away. Obviously the gods would not do such a bad thing as getting off the horse to pick up the box. The remaining shadows chased after them. Mingfei was covered in blood. The reaction speed of the 15-year-old body and brain to external stimuli was far beyond Mingfei's imagination. He was as agile as a silver cat dancing in the rain, avoiding the attacks of the shadows again and again. The combat experience of more than 100 years, which had become instinctive, allowed him to dodge with the chainsaw sword in his hand accurately and quickly, like a scalpel, to cut off the limbs or head of the Black Shadow. What Mingfei didn't notice was that a layer of hazy golden light appeared on his body. The black blood of the Black Shadow splashed on it was instantly purified into dots of golden starlight, making this layer of light more condensed. "Son, get in the car!" Shu Tianzhao joined the purification of the Black Shadow. The Murazame in his hand drew a bright arc of light, as if it was cut through the rain curtain. The black shadows surrounding Maybach and Mingfei were instantly resolved, and their heads fell to the ground. But the bodies still stood in place, and black blood spurted out from their smooth neck fractures, like human-shaped fountains. Shu Tianzhao raised his eyebrows and urged the stunned Shu Ziham to sit in the driver's seat. "If you have anything to say, leave it for the mountain worship." Started. The center console of the Maybach lit up with a nice blue light again. "And you, little Zion, hurry into." He looked at Mingfei, who was emitting golden flames all over his body, and the two pairs of dazzling golden pupils stared at each other through the blood and rain. Before Mingfei could answer, the swirling wind suddenly blew up, carrying the invisible water wall from 3 directions. Shu Tianzhao's face suddenly turned pale. "Son, reverse gear. Go." Shu Ziham did it mechanically, and the Maybach retreated rapidly. But it stopped after touching the water wall, and no matter how that 12-cylinder engine roared, it still couldn't move. Their retreat was blocked by the rain. Obviously, the door to leave here was controlled by the god in front of them. "I'll find a way to hold back that heretic. You take the opportunity to retreat with your son," Mingfei said in a deep voice, holding the chainsaw sword in his hand and walking towards Odion without looking back. His soul is still that of a noble Weeper warrior, who stands tall and proud to protect the weak until his death. Damn. It's really the Yangtze River where the waves behind push the waves ahead. Are all miners so arrogant now? Shu Tianzhao was stunned at first, and then cursed in a low voice. Slightly changed the setting of the Machine Soul. Chapter 6. Chainsaw sword slashing at God. Shu Tianzhao's self-esteem would not allow him to sit and wait for his son to escape while letting a miner fight for his life. He walked to the car window, lowered his head, and showed a gentle smile. "Some people always tell me that if I raise my son to the age of 18, the main task of this life is completed. I'm obviously a bastard father who gave up the task halfway. But I am still very greedy. I want to see you get into a good university, then start a career and start a family, and marry a wife as beautiful as your mother. I'm really sorry, Zohan. You have to live well and protect your mother. Shuzaham stared blankly at his father with red eyes, and tears could not stop flowing. He thought he could take on everything when he grew up, but at this time he became a child who wanted to rely on his father. Shu Tianzhao touched Shuzaham's head for the last time, turned around and walked towards the shadows and gods in the distance. Dad! Shuzaham shouted at the back in the rain. But the man did not look back. At this moment, he changed from a father who doted on his children to a fearless desperado. Hey! Sign boy! Wait for me! The storm howled, and the thunder and lightning flashed. A new round of conflict between humans and gods will break out. The shadows who seized the suitcase did not launch a counterattack against Mingfei and Shu Tianzhao. They lined up in front of the gods, leaving a path. Sleipnir moved its 8 hooves, and every step it took was like a thunderbolt hitting the heart. The gods unveiled the curtain of shadows, and his majestic figure was revealed to the world under the illumination of mercury light. He was wearing a heavy dark gold armor with intricate patterns, a blue cloak that fluttered in the wind, and his body was wrapped tightly in a shroud covered with blood-red spells. His palm was holding a long spear like a dead branch. It was the Gungnir that was a short fire spear in mythology and legend. Raindrops slid down the curved gun body like a meteor streaking across the sky, and every detail that the eyes touched on this divine gun was full of epic feeling. After witnessing his dignity, any human being would not be able to help but kneel down and worship devoutly to get close to the glory of God. Filthy false god. Mingfei sneered at this, and the machine soul of the chainsaw sword in his hand expressed disdain together with the master. This sentence was like a fuse for declaring war, igniting the beginning of the second conflict. Odin's hand wrapped in a shroud raised Gungnir, and the tip of the gun like a dead branch pointed at Mingfei. If Odin really owned the Hall of Valor that stored countless warriors in myths and legends, then the group of black shadows in front of him were the Valkyries who supported him until the Ragnarok. Gungnir's gun tip was pointing to their will. The black wave rushed up, wanting to tear apart the human who'd blasphemed and insulted God. It doesn't matter whether they're heretics or aliens now. What matters is, you will all be purified. The light surrounding Mingfei is close to materialization, like a blazing golden flame burning behind him. The chainsaw sword in his hand is also stained with a layer of golden light, and the new machine soul is bathed in the divine blessing and roars happily. His belief is as firm as a rock, like a golden sun crashing into the surging black wave. Then a real wave of black blood gushed out. Even if these black shadows were elite warriors in their lifetime, with extraordinary combat experience and skills, but in terms of experience, who can compare with a tough soul that has fought bloody battles for 107 years? What's more, Mingfei felt that he was filled with endless power, as if he had returned to the superhuman body that had been transformed through 19 operations. And the gold and sacred light wrapped around his body as his own power armor. Bang! The roaring chainsaw sword pierced through the chest of a black shadow. As the chainsaw sword pierced into the body, Mingfei's left hand had already locked the neck of the black shadow in front of him. Bang! Then there was a muffled sound, and the right hand that released the chainsaw sword clenched into a fist and neatly smashed its head and the grey-white mask that seemed to grow on its face. A black shadow seized the opportunity when he did not close his fist and attacked from the right. Mingfei raised his shoulder and blocked it with his arm, twisted his steps, and gave it the same treatment with his free left hand. It was like an action shot that had been rehearsed countless times, flowing smoothly in less than a second. And such bloody and wonderful shots were shown all the time. Mingfei pulled out the chainsaw sword from the black shadow that temporarily served as a sword rack, turned around and split the head of a black shadow in half. 4 or 5 black shadows attacked from the blind spot behind Mingfei at the same time, but the next moment they were burned by the blazing sacred golden flame on his body and wailed repeatedly. There were only 2 spectators. This little Zion, what kind of words are those? Bronze throne? Doesn't look like it. King's gift? Doesn't look like it either. Fuck, which family sent this kid to train as a super genius? So awesome. Shu Tianzhao casually dealt with several black shadows that entangled him, muttering to himself. Without using his own words, he thought he couldn't dance freely among the dead pools like Mingfei did. He could even call it a bath. Another spectator was the Honorable Lord God Odin. He stared at Mingfei, who was slaughtering the Valkyries, and seemed to be completely enraged by this one-sided battle. He decided to kill this arrogant blasphemer with his own hands. Perhaps he noticed the false god's gaze. After twisting the neck of the last black shadow with his bare hands, Mingfei stepped on the pile of corpses and looked at Odian. The mercury and the blazing gold light faced each other, and the darkness on both sides of the viaduct was like an abyss. Your soul will die completely along with your body. The low voice rolled like thunder. The heavy dark gold armor rustled, and Odian's huge hand wrapped in the blood-red shroud grabbed the dark and dead branch-like divine spear coming near again. After commanding the Valkyries to carry out his will, he thrust the spear into the ground. It's broken. Shu Tianzhao's expression tightened and he quickened his pace. Legend has it that Kumyunir is made of branches from the world tree. Before it leaves his hand, the target's soul has been locked and is destined to be pierced through the chest by the divine spear. He had no time to consider whether the legend was true or not, and he didn't want to verify the authenticity of the legend himself. He had to stop Odian from throwing Kumyunir before he could, so that Mingfei could leave with Shu Zhehan. I am the son of St. Jeremiah, and my soul should return to the golden throne with the father of genes. Mingfei bent down and pulled out the chainsaw sword that was stuck in the Black Shadow's body, with a smile of sarcasm and disdain on his face. Shu Tianzhao couldn't help but stop and stared blankly at the boy who rushed towards Odian. The light on his body was as dazzling as the sun. No, that was not the sun, that was a cocoon. Accept the judgment, false god. With this roar, the butterfly emerged from the cocoon, and a pair of brilliant golden red wings completely spread out from behind Mingfei. The holy and unyielding angel leaped high, and the roaring chainsaw sword in his hand chopped down the god's head. Chapter 7 The Bleeding God. If this scene could be frozen, it might become a magnificent painting in the epic story of mythology. But both the angel and the god were extremely eager to kill each other. Odian's single pupil reflected a fascinating golden light, and he stacked the holy angel who was coming towards him with his divine spear. He stacked countless times in an instant, and each thrust was accompanied by a dark golden stream of light, like a dense meteor shower, looking for Mingfei's vital points from different angles. The holy wings of light behind Mingfei blocked these despicable and tricky attacks, and the arc of the meteor was shattered by the light feathers and holy flames. The god paid the price for his arrogance. He could have thrown an unavoidable shot to lock the soul and fate. But now the chainsaw sword burning with golden holy flames in the angel's hand has approached his noble head. Odian could only block it with his spear. Bang! The chainsaw sword burning with golden flames roared and tried to cut off the dead branch like divine spear, but it never left even a trace on the spear. For that chainsaw sword, which was a greening tool of the school affairs department of Shilan Middle School a few days ago, even if it had a machine soul and received a powerful blessing, it was too difficult to saw off the divine spear made of the branches of the world tree. Mingfei immediately changed the angle of attack, and the saw blade of the chainsaw sword deviated and stabbed, trying to crush Odian's big eye. But the next moment, slate near under Odian's seat roared with thunder, and it moved its 8 sturdy hooves like pillars, pulling the god away from Mingfei. Almost at the same time, the roar of the surging sea came from the dark abyss on both sides of the viaduct. Boom! The surging water curtain rose from both sides of the viaduct, and even the gods seemed too small in front of the waves they summoned. In the reflection of the golden and silver light, there were countless black shadows in the waves rushing from the abyss to the sky. Odian once again summoned the heroes who fought for him. But Mingfei's attention was not here. He caught the man who seemed to be integrated with the night and was running towards Odian. Shu Tianzhao. The small space around him became quite sticky. After entering that space, the raindrops became extremely slow and temporarily suspended in the air. But his speed was the same as always, like a ghost blending into the night. Even Odian did not notice the rapid approach of this ghost. Sleipnir took him to a sufficient distance. In his one eye, there was only the existence of Mingfei, the blasphemer. Odian raised Kumyunir, his figure and movements were perfect like a Greek sculpture, with an unparalleled sense of power. This shot was a shot that locked fate. All the power of this rainy night world seemed to be gathered on this divine gun, to destroy everything in its path. But suddenly, Sleipnir let out a thunderous roar of pain. The shot that locked fate was interrupted. Odian leaned forward and lost his aim. Shu Tianzhao. The man attacked from the darkness like a ghost, targeting the 8-legged steed of the god. 4 of its front legs were cut off by his swords, and hot blood gushed all over its body. Mingfei followed closely, running wildly with a chainsaw sword in his hand, like a human-shaped golden tank charging into the enemy line. The sidekick wings behind him did not give him the flying ability like the Emperor's living saint, but it didn't matter at all. A trace of psychic blessing from the great Emperor has definitely descended on me, which is already the supreme honor. Sleipnir unyieldingly supported its huge body with its remaining 4 legs to maintain the dignity of its master as a god. It roared like thunder, and the golden eyes under the iron mask stared angrily at the despicable sneak attacker. The latter shouted loudly, "Go, sign boy!" Golden light filled Sleipnir's eyes, and the holy angel was running towards it, rushing like lightning. It wanted to summon the raging thunder to smash it, but the angel did not give it this opportunity. Bang! Lumenfei punched the alien giant horse on the head, breaking its neck abruptly. The giant horse screamed in pain, and hot blood spurted out from under the broken iron face. Following closely was a roaring chainsaw sword, which ruthlessly tore open its soft chest without armor and scales. Such a fatal blow made the dying Sleipnir unable to maintain its body and fell down powerlessly. Even the god on the throne was taken with him. Odin fell off the horse, but he did not lose his balance. The blue-ink cloak fluttered, and he landed steadily. But there is no doubt that the majesty of the god was completely lost at this moment. Lumenfei pulled out the chainsaw sword from the dead Pegasus and pounced on Odin. He was full of fighting spirit and vowed to sacrifice the blood of the false god to the Emperor's golden throne. Odin let out a high-pitched explosion, like an angry curse on the blasphemer. 2 silver-white lights condensed in front of Lumenfei and Shu Tianzhao respectively. Lumenfei was not the only one who wanted to assassinate the gods. Shu Tianzhao held a magic knife in his hand. Although his pair of golden eyes were not as dazzling as Lumenfei's spiritual energy from the great emperor, they were by no means a decoration. The word spirit Time Zero was stimulated to the limit, and even fine blue-black scales appeared on Shu Tianzhao's skin. The normal flow of time was slowed down dozens of times in his power field. He was like an extreme black light, trying to send the blade into Odin's single pupil. But the running water curtain surged out of the silver-white light, as if it was hit head-on by a violent battering ram. A sharp bone-cracking sound came from inside Shu Tianzhao's body. Lumenfei was only repelled briefly, and the water flow that became a weapon under the blessing of an unknown force did not drown the shining golden spiritual energy. Odin naturally understood this, and his single eye locked onto Lumenfei. Even when he fell from Sleipnir, his right hand holding the gun, which had not changed its throwing action, now moved. It seemed that the priest's wing of charging had been completed. Perhaps the thread of fate was finally connected. Odin threw Mjolnir, as if throwing out the rain and thunder of the entire night. The expected high-speed sonic boom did not explode, and the black spear just flew towards Lumenfei quietly and silently, carrying a black smoke stream symbolizing death. A terrifying sense of crisis rose from Lumenfei's heart. The last time he felt this way was when the enemy was an alien creature called the Hive Tyrant. After realizing that he could not avoid the death brought by this false god's blasphemous weapon, Lumenfei's golden vertical pupils ignited a fierce fire. He threw the chainsaw sword in his hand at Odin with all his strength. Just like a golden thunder flashed by, the chainsaw sword hit Odin before Mjolnir hit Lumenfei. The roaring chainsaw sword passed through the gap of the heavy dark golden armor and slashed the body of the god. It was only half a finger away from tearing the neck of the god. The saw blade rotated and brought the surging blood of the god. The machine soul of the chainsaw sword bit madly, trying to tear the half-finger distance to give the false god the judgment of death. Thanks to Kyling Naught, book friend 20220523111015964, I'll send well for the money, and the 4 angels of death, the holy and the commandments, for their reward support, and thanks to the other loyal Astates for their monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. May the Emperor's holy light bless you all. Chapter 8. The Crying Man. On the other side, Mjolnir, who was wrapped in the breath of decay and death, was approaching Lumenfei. Lumenfei never feared death, but that didn't mean he would do nothing and let the blasphemous pseudo-god weapon easily pierce him. He reached out and grabbed the tip of the black spear. Shwa! Lumenfei's palm was broken inch by inch under the decaying breath, and blood splattered. Even the psychic light around him was dimming at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the light wings behind him gradually withered. He underestimated the power of the pseudo-god. If it were in the past, this bit of the blessing of the Emperor's holy light would be enough to make him a champion warrior of Emperor's favor. With such an honor, at least the brothers of the regiment who were neglected by the Empire could get more help. But now, the blessing of the holy light only allowed Lumenfei to temporarily restore his physical strength to that of the Astatives. As the holy light dimmed, Lumenfei could feel that the power was constantly disappearing from his body. But he still held his head high, showing no fear, and fought against Mjolnir to the death. Odin finally tore off the sharp teeth of the chainsaw sword before it bit off his neck. The blood of the god was gushing, and the remaining golden flames were still burning his wounds, making it difficult for him to heal easily. He roared angrily, and crushed the chainsaw sword that had drunk his blood into pieces along with its internal soul. In this fight, the god suffered heavy damage. The situation of the angels was not optimistic either. Mingfei's arm had been completely carbonized, and the divine spear in his hand was hissing in a low voice, breaking through the protection of the holy light inch by inch and piercing his body. It seems that your soul is protected, brother. Suddenly, Mingfei heard someone beside him chuckle. The handsome little boy appeared beside him at some point. He stared at the black spear that pierced his chest like a living thing, and his delicate face was full of curiosity. Demon, my soul will belong to the golden throne, and you will never be able to take it away. Mingfei said coldly. I really want your soul, but not now. And from now on, your soul is not so easy to take. The boy who called himself Mingfei smiled and stretched out his hand to grab the black spear. Mingfei immediately felt that the pain from the false god spear was much relieved. This demon is actually helping him. And the remaining spiritual energy in his body did not repel him too much. But now is not the time to delve into these issues. He seized the opportunity and wanted to pull out the black spear in one go. Odien's dull chanting came from afar. He was only severely injured, not dead, and he still had the strength to use that powerful authority. The sound of the rushing waves sounded again. The surging water curtains rising from the abyss on both sides finally received Odien's call at this moment, as if they were alive, splitting and twisting into dozens of violent silver water dragons. Compared to them, this section of the viaduct was as small as a lonely boat trembling on the sea. Mingfei's face changed, and he suddenly turned back to look at the Maybach that was still trapped in the 3 water curtains in the distance. Shu Zhan was still in the car. Zhan, drive forward. Don't stop. A roar suddenly broke out on the shaky boat. After hearing his father's words, Shu Zhan did not hesitate, or he had lost the ability to think, and mechanically stepped on the accelerator. The 12-cylinder engine of Maybach roared, and rushed to the epic battlefield that had just subsided not long ago in the dozens of water dragons falling towards the viaduct. Great, he's still alive. Mingfei breathed a sigh of relief, and tried his best to pull Kumyunir out of his chest, pulling out a large cluster of silver-white silk threads. These spiderweb-like silk threads flashed with the luster of diamonds, but were quickly burned by the remaining spiritual energy in his body, igniting golden holy flames. These are the threads of fate. Before Kumyunir was thrown out, fate had already connected your heart to the tip of the spear. Congratulations, brother, you are the first person to escape the fate of Kumyunir. Mingfei said faintly. Mingfei ignored the devil's whispers. There was little psychic holy light left in his body, but he still rushed forward to the bleeding Odien. He wanted to hold Odien back before the world was swallowed by the torrent and let Shu Tianzhao and his son leave. If he could kill the false god, it would be even more profitable. But at this moment, time seemed to freeze. The world in front of him was stained with a layer of grey, and the water dragons that were crashing down on both sides of the viaduct stopped. Mingfei could see countless crystal water droplets hovering in the air, and countless black shadows were jumping out of the abyss under the viaduct. He also saw Shu Tianzhao in the distance, but Mingfei almost mistook him for an alien. His exposed skin was covered with dark blue scales, 2 ferocious bone horns protruded from his forehead, and his golden pupils glowed like lava. Thick blood-red mist was steaming all over his body, and it was obvious that it was a great burden for him to launch such a powerful psychic ability. Only he, Mingfei, Shu Zhan and the Maybach could move normally on this section of the viaduct. Take your son away. I'll hold him back. Mingfei yelled. Don't even think about killing the god at this time. Take my son away. I'm not embarrassed enough to let a miner cover my retreat. Shu Tianzhao shouted hoarsely. Mingfei looked ugly, and clenched and unclenched his fists. Don't worry, I won't die. When you can become a Super Saiyan, come in and maybe you can help me. Don't talk nonsense now, protect my son as far as you can. The man's body trembled, half kneeling on the ground and shouting. Then you better not die. Mingfei took a deep breath and looked at Odien fiercely. Odien's single pupil was also staring at them, and the endless divine blood flowing from his shoulder dyed the shroud even more scarlet. Come in again and take off your head, false god, Mingfei whispered, stretching out his carbonized black arm to grab the door of the Maybach that passed by. Shu Zhan, who was sitting in the driver's seat, saw the man half kneeling on the ground with a long knife in his arms, looking as ferocious as a devil. The man smiled at him, with a mouth full of sharp fangs, and the smile at the corners of his mouth extended to his ears. Well done, son. Shu Tianzhao said softly, watching the Maybach move forward and rush into the heavy rainy night. Boom. The flow of time returned to normal, and the raging torrent swallowed up everything in sight. Shu Zhang's mind was blank, and he mechanically drove the car in the rain. He had never thought that a man would be so majestic and could show such a miraculous scene, and this man was his father. The man could slay shadows and assassinate gods with a magic sword, and he was so cool. But he was willing to play a useless man in front of his wife and a humble driver in front of his son, just to avoid involving them in another dangerous world. When Shu Zhang understood all this, it was too late. On this rainy night, his father left him, and it was still unknown whether they could meet again in this life. Thanks to the 7 angels of death, including book friend 1509012329846, book friend 20228221526340001, Kylin Nort, book friend 20190722075152724, Xiao Xiao Jiri Mokjun, B, and Mengdan, for their rewards. Thanks to other loyal Astates for their monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Thank you. Chapter 9 Shu Zhang. I want to believe in the Emperor. This super strong typhoon did not cause much panic in this coastal city. Most people were happily enjoying the unexpected 3-day holiday at home. After the wind speed dropped early in the morning, tow trucks drove onto the elevated road to rescue the vehicles trapped on it when the typhoon landed. Every person who was rescued was ecstatic to have escaped death. They spent a thrilling night in the closed car. They were grateful to God for not having their car overturned by the hurricane. In the end, only 2 teenagers who were silent in the wind and rain were left guarding the exit. The clothes of the younger one were torn, revealing beautiful muscle lines. I think he exercises regularly. He just stood there, not afraid of the low temperature and cold wind, with a serious face and no one knowing what he was thinking. The older one was soaked all over and seemed to be frozen. His body trembled slightly, but he didn't move his feet. He stared at each towed car with sadness and hope, until all the tow trucks and police evacuated, but he didn't wait for the person he was waiting for. He squatted down slowly, as if his hope was completely extinguished. Don't be so sad, your father should still be alive. Since he said so, we can only believe him. Mingfei sighed and wiped the cold rain off his face. Shu Zhang did not answer. Don't worry, I owe your father a favor. Next time I go in, I will chop off the head of that false god and rescue your father at the same time. Mingfei sat on the wet ground and looked up at the sky. The two of them were silent for a long time in that cold wind, until Shu Zhang turned his head to look at him and whispered, "The god you believe in, is his title Emperor?" Mingfei was refreshed, and immediately sat up straight, with a pious and serious look. Emperor is not a title, but a great symbol. He is the patron saint of all mankind, he loves all living things, and is the tower of hope for mankind in the dark galaxy. He is immortal and existed long before the first city of mankind was built. He guided mankind forward in different eras with different identities. His glory protects the heroic souls to return to the golden throne, rather than falling into the filthy abyss. Mingfei talked endlessly, praising the will of the great emperor, like a fanatic. In fact, all our states are fanatics of the emperor. You became an angel, is it because of him? Shu Zhang asked seriously. Yes, that is the blessing of psychic energy from the great emperor. Can everyone who believes in him receive this blessing? Mingfei saw the flame of revenge in Shu Zhang's eyes. He shook his head solemnly and said, "We have never been loyal to him for the blessing of the Emperor's power. His existence itself is a beacon of mankind. We will serve him with everything and protect the humans he loves for him. I have seen countless mortal soldiers. They do not have strong bodies and power armor like Astates warriors. But when facing those hateful and terrible alien enemies, they never backed down and fought for the Emperor with the most steadfast loyalty and faith until the last moment." As he spoke, Mingfei realized that he had let the cat out of the bag. He inadvertently told some of the experiences of his soul fighting in that cold universe. This is the biggest secret in his heart. Fortunately, Shu Zhang's expression did not change much. After witnessing the mythical epic scene last night, the world he knew had already collapsed. I understand. After listening, Shu Zhang stood up silently and walked down the viaduct entrance alone. Mingfei wanted to chase him and ask him a few more questions, but thought about it and decided not to. The child had experienced such a great shock, so it would be better to let him calm down alone. Praise the Emperor. Mingfei looked at Shuzaham's back and prayed in a low voice. After leaving that section of the viaduct, the remaining emperor's holy light on his body purified his hands that were contaminated by the gum of the false god. After a moment, his expression became gloomy and solemn again. He overlooked a big problem. The emperor's eyes can reach here. Doesn't it mean that his hometown is also in that cold and dark universe? Those aliens, war maniac greenskins, greedy and hungry alien insects, weird and evil elder, will their dirty claws one day touch this beautiful planet? Mingfei's thoughts began to fluctuate violently. But after a moment, he calmed down in the prayer. First, get rid of all the false gods and aliens here, he whispered to himself with a firm look. And the 5th day after the typhoon, Shuzaham knocked on the door of Mingfei's house. Who is it? You come to visit when it's almost time for dinner. Aunt put down the kitchen knife in her hand and ran to open the door, and saw a boy wearing sunglasses and a cold face. Hello, Auntie. My name is Shuzaham. Aunt was stunned for a moment, and then exclaimed in surprise. Shuzaham. Are you the Shuzaham from Shilan Middle School? Even though the aunt was a housewife, she had heard about the #1 figure in Shilan Middle School from Lumix. What? Shuzaham came to our house. The chubby Lumix heard his mother's voice and rushed out of the room. This is big news. If his classmates at school know about it, he will be very powerful. He urgently wants to go to his father's room to find a camera to take a picture of this memorable scene. Yes, I'm looking for Mingfei. As soon as Shuzaham said this, Lumix immediately deflated like a ball. Aunt's face suddenly became a little strange. Looking for Mingfei, he is now, praying. Do you want to come in and sit down? Praying, then I'll wait for him here. Sorry for bothering you, Aunt. Shuzaham's expression did not change, and he politely thanked his aunt. After a few minutes, Mingfei appeared in front of Shuzaham with a calm face. Is there something you want to talk to me about? Yes. I want to believe in the Emperor. Shuzaham responded calmly. Puff. Aunt, who pretended to drink water but was actually eavesdropping, sprayed water on Lumix's face. She saw the changes in her nephew in the past few months. In addition to his rapid progress in grades and getting up on time at 4 in the morning every day to run out for exercise, he would burn incense at home every day and pray at home like an old monk in meditation. Even before eating, he would say thank you Aunt for preparing delicious meals for us. May the Emperor bless us. Then she and her husband went through journey to the west and investiture of the gods overnight, but could not find the immortal with the title of Emperor. After the idea of being possessed by a dirty thing was denied by her uncle, our Lu family are all firm materialist fighters, her aunt suspected that Mingfei believed in some messed up things that the country is still cracking down on. Fortunately, Mingfei's usual performance is as perfect as other people's children, and her aunt was worried that the child support she sent every month would be sent to other places, so she didn't call the police immediately. But now even the star student Shuzaham said he wanted to believe in the Emperor. If his parents come to find him, it will be a big trouble. She wanted to dissuade him, but she heard Mingfei agree. Okay. Is that all? There is no initiation ceremony. Well, Mingfei thought for a moment, then grabbed Shuzaham's hand and said seriously. Now you and my fighting brother. Chapter 10 Investigation. We will fight to protect humanity, and courage and faith are our guns and swords. It sounds like the lines of some comic protagonists. The Emperor's ambition is countless times greater than theirs. Mingfei and Shuzaham walked side by side downstairs in the community. It was lunchtime, and there were not many people on the road. By the way, why do you always wear these black glasses? Shuzaham lowered his sunglasses slightly, revealing a pair of dazzling golden eyes. Mingfei raised his eyebrows, not surprised. When did you mutate? Is it a mutation? Shuzaham pondered the word, then put on his sunglasses again and said calmly. When I got up this morning and looked in the mirror. These few days, when I close my eyes, my mind is full of the scenes I experienced that night. It was also after that night that my senses became clearer and more sensitive, giving me the feeling of a normal person taking off his myopic glasses. It seems that there are many mysteries about your father. Mingfei said. He hid his true self very deeply. No one has asked about him for so many days after the accident, including the boss of the Black Prince group. Even if he doesn't care about his missing driver, he should care about his Maybach worth more than 9 million. But he didn't. The next day, a new driver drove a new Maserati to pick him up, as if there had never been a driver like Shu Tianzhao. Shuzaham said. The two of them had already walked to the gate of the community, and a Mercedes-Benz S500 was parked on the side of the road. "Then did you tell your mother?" Mingfei asked. Originally, he didn't want to say much, but since the other party was his first loyal fighting brother who believed in the Emperor here, as a former apprentice holy blood priest of the chapter, he should also pay more attention to Shuzaham's mental state, so as to slowly guide him from an avenger to a loyal warrior fighting for humanity and the Emperor. "No, I don't want to disturb my mother. Since she has a new life, let her continue to live without worries," Shuzaham said. "Okay." It seems that Shuzaham's mental state is quite stable and he doesn't need to be enlightened. Shuzaham opened the door of the Mercedes-Benz and took out a black extended tennis bag. "This is for you." He unzipped a section of the zipper, revealing a black and murderous handle. This was the second Murazame inserted in the umbrella rack of the Maybach's door. The first one was held in Shu Tianzhao's hand and cut off Slibnir's forelegs. "No, keep it for yourself." Mingfei shook his head. He was used to weapons such as chainsaw swords and power hammers that could deal with a large number of enemies at the same time. Murazame's thin long sword was not suitable for him, so let Shuzaham inherit his father's business. "Okay." Shuzaham didn't say much and put the tennis bag back in the back seat. "So now you want me to go with you to investigate that boss and see what secrets he knows about your father?" Mingfei asked. "No, let's go to my father's residence first. There may be things we want to know there, and we can clean it up by the way," Shuzaham said calmly. "Okay." Mingfei was very interested. After realizing that there are aliens and false gods in his hometown, Mingfei has read a lot of myths from home and abroad in the past few days. Fortunately, he has adapted to the diverse culture of his hometown again, so he doesn't suddenly shout these are heretical books that believe in false gods, and then burn the books when reading. But apart from knowing the name of the false god Odian who was severely damaged by him, he got nothing else. Now he can get more information about aliens and false gods from Shu Tianzhao. The Mercedes-Benz drove all the way to the edge of the city. My impression of my father is that he is a driver who can only drive. At first, he drove for the city's tax bureau, and then resigned and ran to the then emerging Universal Group to drive for the boss. A few years ago, the boss of the Universal Group ran away with the money. After the company went bankrupt, he ran to the Black Prince Group. After divorcing my mother, he has been living here. Shuzaham stopped the car on the side of the road. 10 years ago, this was the most bustling high-tech heavy industrial zone in the city. Wanyu Group was the most fashionable leader here. The boss claimed to build Asia's first special metal base locally and defrauded countless loans from the bank. But the factory's performance was extremely poor. When the bank found out something was wrong, the boss had already run away with the money, leaving behind a huge mess. Mingfei followed Shuzaham into the deserted and silent factory area. The bumpy road was full of glass fragments and nails, and the piles of rocks were overgrown with weeds, like a wasteland. Of course, there were residents in the wasteland. Outside an abandoned factory building not far away, several middle-aged men wearing blue-grey coats and with dusty faces saw the two visiting teenagers. After looking at each other for a few times, they walked straight over. "Hey, brother, are you looking for someone? I know this place." The eyes and smiles on the faces of these middle-aged men were malicious. "No need, I know how to get there," Shuzaham said calmly, ignoring them. One of the men quickened his pace and blocked his way. In response, he received a black tennis bag containing Murazime. With a pop, the man covered his face and fell to the ground screaming. "I don't want to cause trouble, but don't mess with me either." Shuzaham's voice became cold, and then he continued to walk deeper into the factory. The men retreated in fear, not daring to stop him. Mingfei raised his eyebrows, said nothing, and continued to follow Shuzaham, until he saw a grey-white 3-story building. Most of the office doors in the building were sealed by the court, except for the office at the end of the first floor, which had a piece of white paper on the door with the Crooked Works Media Asia Group Bankruptcy Liquidation Team Office written on it. There was only one person in the office, who was dozing on the table. Shuzaham walked straight over and knocked on the table lightly. "Hello, Uncle Shu." The middle-aged man looked up blankly and looked at the cold-blooded boy in sunglasses in front of him. Who are you?" "Shuzaham, the son of Shu Tianzhao," Shuzaham said. "Oh. I remember now. I often heard Lao Shu mention you. Now I see that you are really extraordinary." Uncle Shu patted his head and put on a friendly smile. "Dad told me that if I come here to find him and he is not here, I can ask you for the key," Shuzaham said. Oh, yes, he told me many times. Nothing happened on the way here. Did anything happen here? Mingfei asked. Alas, a group of very troublesome guys have settled here. I don't know what they are doing. Anyway, if you see them, you should take a deep look. Found it, Latoshu's room key, 062. Uncle Shu flicked through a pile of documents on the table and finally found a rusty iron key in the drawer. By the way, where did your father go to make money these days? I haven't seen him yet. He still owes me a meal of braised large intestines. Uncle Shu asked with a smile. He's dead. Shu's hand looked calm. The tears he wanted to shed had already dried up on that rainy night. Now he was waiting for the moment when he would kill the god with a knife. Thanks to Tiger and Snow, here are your Shikage QK, book friend 1, 2, 0, 7, 0, 3, 0, 7, 3, 7, 4, 7, 6, 2, 9, Mercury up for their support. Thanks to all the loyal asteties for their monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. I wish you all a happy National Day in advance. There will be 3 updates every day during the National Day holiday. If you were listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 11 Dark Room. Uncle Shu didn't react, and looked at Mingfei behind Shu's ham with a blank look. Don't be consumed by the rage of revenge, brother, Mingfei sighed in his heart, and said to the middle-aged man in a sad tone. Yes, Uncle Shu had a car accident a few days ago and unfortunately passed away. I'm sorry, Zhaohan, please accept my condolences. Uncle Shu was stunned for a long time before he sighed quietly. It's okay, thank you for your trouble. Shu Zhaohan's expression remained unchanged. There are 2 basements in this 3-story building. The stairs and corridors are dark and long, and many places are piled with scrap mechanical parts. The air is filled with a choking and heavy smell of kerosene, and Shu Zhaohan couldn't help coughing lightly. This place used to be an air conditioning room and a temporary warehouse. When old Shu came to work, he said he had no place to live, so the boss said he would arrange a temporary room for him in the basement. I took him out to buy bedding. Alas, who would have thought he would stay here for so long, and he left as soon as he said he would. Alas. Uncle Shu sighed. People, in this life, don't they all hope for the well-being of their children? I introduced him to several cheap rental houses, but he refused them all, saying that he had to save some money for his son's wedding gift in the future. Alas. He seemed to be saying this deliberately for Shu Zhaohan to hear. He and Shu Tianzhao were drinking buddies, and they knew more or less about Shu Tianzhao. Shu Zhaohan said nothing, lowering his head slightly. 062, we're here. The 3 stopped in front of a metal door with the white number 062 painted on it, and Uncle Shu took out the key and opened the door. The air in the room was even fresher than the air in the corridor, and what came into view was a clean little house. A double bed, a bedside table, a writing desk with a chair, and a small refrigerator. These are all the furniture in the room. I won't bother you anymore. The key is on the door. Just bring it to me when you leave. Uncle Shu left, and before leaving, he closed the iron door for them to prevent the smell of kerosene from outside from coming in. Cry if you want to. There are no outsiders here. Mingfei walked to the bedside table. There were more than a dozen books called Story Club neatly placed on the simple small bookshelf. He took out a book and flicked through it briefly. After finding nothing unusual, he put it back intact. Shu Zhaohan didn't say anything. He took off his sunglasses and reached out to take down a family photo hanging on the wall. The man had a slicked back hair and a proud smile on his handsome face. One hand was around the waist of the beautiful woman next to him, and the other hand was holding a cute little boy who was concentrating on licking ice cream. Shu Zhaohan's fingers gently stroked the man's face in the photo, and there was a flame of sadness dancing in his golden eyes. Your father is very powerful. Since he has been living in this place, it is impossible that there is nothing. The room was not big and was as clean as a blank sheet of paper. Mingfei glanced at it and found nothing unusual. He was about to take out a book Story Club from the simple bookshelf on the bedside table and flicked through it to see if there were any clues inside, but suddenly he seemed to notice something unusual and pressed his palm on the mattress. There seems to be something under the mattress. Mingfei got up and pulled the whole bed open. As expected, he saw a tightly assembled secret door. The iron sheet and iron frame welded this blue secret door to the ground, and a heavy padlock was added. It seems that your father's secret is down there. Do you want to find that key? Mingfei knocked on the secret door lightly. The metal sound was a big dull. Obviously, this door was quite thick. Don't bother so much. Shuzaham took out the Mura's aim from the black tennis bag, unsheathed the blade, and the iron blue blade light splashed like water. He chopped down with a knife, not even using much strength, and the padlock broke with a sound, and the cut was as smooth as a mirror. The secret door opened, and what appeared was not a ladder but a steel pipe, and the bottom of the steel pipe connected to darkness and the unknown. I'll go down first. I hope your father won't set any traps or something. Mingfei grabbed the steel pipe and slid down. It took less than a second to reach the bottom. Shuzaham also slid down. The first thing they smelled was a strong and strange fragrance. As the lights came on, they saw the source of the fragrance. A whole mahogany wine cabinet was neatly placed with various whiskies, and next to each bottle of whiskey was a box of high-quality Cuban cigars. There was a tall bookshelf in front of another wall, but the bookshelf was not filled with books, but well-preserved vinyl records. Shuzaham was still in shock and hadn't come back to his senses. It was hard for him to imagine that a middle-aged driver who supported himself by driving could have so many luxurious consumer goods and collections. Mingfei had no feelings for these so-called luxuries. He walked straight to the soft big bed covered with Australian sheepskin in the center of the room. He certainly didn't want to sleep. His eyes noticed a large net made up of countless red lines crisscrossing under the ceiling. The red lines were strung with photos, news clippings or handwritten papers. Each piece of paper represented an event. Some red lines were parallel to each other, and some were entangled and knotted. Come and have a look at this. Mingfei said, reaching out to take a piece of paper from one of the red lines, and reading the information on it with Shuzaham who was walking quickly. On December 25, 1991, the night of the disintegration of the Soviet regime, a violent explosion occurred in the frozen port north of Verkhoyansk in the tundra within the Arctic Circle. A group of fighter jets that went for reconnaissance encountered an attack from a mysterious creature and crashed. The black box only left a strange voice of Draken. 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 Is this a record of mysterious historical events? Mingfei was a little puzzled. He continued forward along the red line and took down a larger piece of paper with what's written on it. On May 30, 1626, May 6, the 6th year of Tianqi, there was a huge explosion in Wangdongchang, the capital of the Ming dynasty. The sky and the earth were shaking, and the violence was more violent than thunder. The smoke and clouds went straight up, just like Ganoderma lucidum. A 5,000 jin stone lion was thrown out of Shanqing Gate on Shiyuma Street and disappeared. There was a rain of corpses outside Dashan Gate. Human heads, hands, and legs fell on the street. No matter men or women, they were all naked. Further ahead, there was a huge explosion at Mohenjo-daro in India. All the existence within a radius of 1 kilometer from the center of the explosion was turned into dust. The Tunguska explosion, a mushroom cloud rose from the center of the explosion, and the shockwave shattered a glass 650 kilometers away, and the night sky of the entire Eurasian continent was dark red. Shuzaham was horrified. His father would never have these things for fun. There must be a deeper secret. Mingfei frowned. There were only explosions and explosions, and it was unclear whether these explosions were caused by aliens or false gods. He changed a red line and finally found a piece of information that might be about aliens. On November 7, 2002, in the Greenland Sea, attracted by a mysterious heartbeat, the Castle Academy Executive Department went to investigate and encountered an enemy suspected to be the Dragon King in the depths of the ice sea. They were almost wiped out, with only 1.5 people surviving. Chapter 12 Mingfei. The alien is actually me. Suspected enemy of the Dragon King? Dragon King? Mingfei pondered this special word. Shuzaham noticed another point. Castle is mentioned here. My father told me not to go to Castle College when we were in the car. Yesterday I searched for information about this college on the internet, and there were only 18 related entries. I only know that it is a private aristocratic university located in the United States. This Castle College should be an organization dedicated to dealing with aliens or false gods named Dragon King. Your father should have a deep connection with it. He came to this city and disguised himself as a driver, probably to find and kill the false god called Odeon. Mingfei took another piece of paper from the parallel of this red line. August 30, 1900, summer morning. The mysterious ancient corpse awakened, the castle manor near Hamburg was destroyed, the elite secret party and heart society was annihilated, and the only survivor was Hilbert Jean Angers. castle, secret party, and hard society, Hilbert Genange, there are a few new words. In 1992, the icebreaker Lenin was suspected to be contaminated by unknown dragon creatures and sank in the Japan Trench. The records hanging here are all major historical events in the past 200 years. The only thing they have in common is that they're related to the so-called dragon race. Mingfei continued to analyze. Don't you feel nervous? Shuzhang asked. But after he said it, he realized that his question was meaningless. That night, the brother in front of him turned into an angel and severely injured the main god Odin. There's nothing to be nervous about. Mingfei didn't think so. These are just records of information and photos that may be related to aliens. He has seen the heretics' blasphemous and cruel demon summoning rituals, and he has also witnessed the doomsday scene of the Tyranids transforming the entire planet into a feeding ground. At the end of all the red lines, there was an ancient name written in ink on the cement wall. Nidhogg. Shuzham whispered the black name on the wall. So, our enemy is the dragon race. A race in mythology. In Norse mythology, the culprit who gnawed down the world tree, the end of all things, the destroyer of the world, the black dragon that symbolizes despair and destruction. Mingfei repeated the information about Nidhogg in the mythology tutorials of various countries these days. Finally, he added, the evil alien. Alien generally refers to alien life species other than humans. In the Golden Age, humans who set foot in the galaxy defeated various aliens with powerful technology, and made nearly 100 alien forces sign a non-aggression agreement with humans. But with the outbreak of the AI rebellion, the victorious humans encountered the subspace storm again. The superluminal navigation method that humans rely on for development, subspace navigation has become a risky action with a life and death experience, and the transportation routes within the entire galaxy have been completely paralyzed. As the colonized planets of human beings in the galaxy were isolated one by one, the alien neighbors who were originally friendly began to take advantage of the situation and treat human beings as slaves and livestock. Since then, human beings have hated aliens extremely. A light laugh came to Mingfei's ears. The photos and pieces of paper interlaced on the red line suddenly stopped shaking, and time seemed to freeze. Clang! Mingfei instantly pulled out the Murazame from Shuzhang's hand, and the cold knife light drew a crescent arc, and the sharp blade pierced the little devil lying on the bed like a swift silver lightning. He was used to using the chainsaw sword, but it didn't mean that he couldn't use other weapons. But when the tip of the knife was only a fingertip away from Mingfei's clean forehead, it was difficult to improve it, as if it had hit an indestructible invisible shield. Brother, don't fight and kill as soon as you meet. Mingfei sighed faintly. He sat lazily on the soft bed covered with Australian sheepskin, shaking the goblet in his hand. The aroma of the island whiskey in the glass was enough to intoxicate him. Devil, get out of my body. Mingfei said coldly. Can't you be polite to your savior? If it weren't for me, you would have been skewered into black meat jerky by the fake communeer. Mingfei took a sip of the whiskey in the glass. Well, this super hybrid has good taste. One day, I will purify you completely. Mingfei said coldly. He put away the Murazame and put it back into the scabbard tightly held in Shuzhang's hand. Brother, are you really going to betray yourself? Wake up, remember your essence. Mingfei spoke faintly, and his words were like that ethereal and moving ballad. Mingfei's brain suddenly felt dizzy, and pictures flashed through his mind one after another. In the blue sky, a black dragon was rising from the depths of the corpse pile, and its wings that covered the sky were full of human bones. In the frozen sea, a white dragon was nailed to a huge bronze pillar that reached the sky, and its dragon blood dyed the entire frozen sea red. In the Sky City, 2 red dragons flapped their wings and soared, and the huge violent tornado they fanned tore the earth apart. Get out! Mingfei shouted angrily, and these alien pictures were shattered by his firm belief, and his mind returned to calm. What's wrong? Shuzhang's voice came from the side. Time has resumed flowing since I don't know when, and the delicate little boy has disappeared. It's okay. Realizing his loss of composure, Mingfei quickly adjusted his emotions and regained his composure. But Shuzhang's eyes were still fixed on him. Your eyes. Eyes. What's wrong? Mingfei was a little puzzled. Shuzhang took a mirror from the workbench nearby. Mingfei saw his eyes filled with blazing golden light. The vertical pupils that had become the symbol of a top predator seemed to be flowing with hot lava. It's just a trick of the devil. Mingfei sneered contemptuously, without causing too much emotional fluctuation. Obviously, this was the work of the devil who called himself Mingfei. Shuzhang hesitated for a while, and then hesitantly said, But that night, your eyes were like this too. Lu Mingfei frowned. Are you sure? Shuzaham nodded. Yes. From the time you fought with those black shadows, aliens until you escaped in a car, your eyes have always been like this. Damn it. After thinking for a long time, Lu Mingfei cursed in a low voice. It seems that not only Xu Tianzhao, but also himself, have many mysteries to be revealed. During the time he was fighting the false god, he was in a holy state blessed by the Emperor's psychic energy, and that little devil could not be playing any tricks. After realizing this, Lu Mingfei was indeed hit hard, and his mind was full of uneasy thoughts such as the alien is actually me and the Emperor, I'm not clean anymore. After all, he has always been proud of his pure human blood. But he quickly adjusted his emotions to avoid being taken advantage of by the devil in his body. The Emperor's psychic blessing is the best shot of cardiac stimulant, his soul is still noble, and he is still a loyal warrior of the Emperor. Chapter 13. The Bell. Lu Mingfei turned his attention back to the dark room that had not been fully explored. On the workbench with a mirror was a small precision engraving machine. Light silver large caliber bullets were neatly stacked in a mahogany box. The surface of each bullet was engraved with intricate patterns. Lu Mingfei gently stroked them with his fingers and could feel the extraordinary power contained in these patterns. Shuzaham's attention was on the corkboard in front of the workbench, which was full of photos pinned with thumbtacks. Lu Mingfei glanced at it and skipped it. These photos were all of women and children, and there was no important information. But for Shuzaham, these photos represent the man's precious memories. The protagonists of the photos are all mothers without exception. The man's shooting skills are very good. Under his lens, the mother is so changeable, and every change is so beautiful. Shuzaham imagined the man holding a cigar, using tweezers to fish out photo after photo from the pool, fixing them on the board with thumbtacks, and watching them slowly dry up. They were his wife and children who once belonged to him, but now they could only be presented in his viewfinder. Intoxicated, he took out a red pen and wrote on the edge of the photo, as if he was talking to the woman in the viewfinder. This is the first year since you left me, and you look good. This is the 2nd year, please don't be so haggard. The 3rd year, you gain weight. The 4th year, I think of you less and less. The 5th year, it continues to get less and less. The 6th year, but I still miss you. Dad, how much responsibility do you have to be willing to leave alone like this? Shuzaham's fingers gently touched the photos and handwriting, muttering to himself. It's better to save these questions for when you see him, now bring the knife to help. Lu Mingfei interrupted Shuzaham's thoughts and pulled out a heavy silver suitcase from under the workbench. There was a half-lush and half-withered world tree engraved on the surface. Shuzaham was stunned. He had seen this style of suitcase before. That night, his father used it as bait, trying to buy him a chance of survival. The box was closed tightly, with no combination lock and only a card slot, but it was obviously fastest to cut it open with Murazame. Murazame once again became the box opening tool. When the box was opened, Lu Mingfei's eyes lit up, although his golden eyes were already dazzling enough. Oh wow! The box was filled with all kinds of cold firearms, Glock, Beretta, M1887 lever-action shotgun. Shuzaham recognized this dangerous thing. It was this kind of shotgun that Arnold Schwarzenegger swung in The Terminator. In addition, the box even contained a set of disassembled Barrett M82A1 large-caliber sniper rifles. The bottom layer of the box was filled with various types of bullets. Each bullet was painted with different patterns, and some bullets were even listed separately, with the bottom painted red to indicate their danger. Shuzaham took a breath of cold air. This was simply a small arsenal. Lu Mingfei was a little excited. He hadn't smelled the smell of gunpowder for too long, and took out a Beretta and played with it in his hand. Although it's light, it's at least a gun. After all, we still need a gun. How can we purify the aliens without a gun? We are still students now, it's not appropriate to use this. Shuzaham looked at Lu Mingfei who hung the pistol on his waist and reminded him with a strange expression. Okay. Lu Mingfei then remembered that he lived in a peaceful and legal society and could not walk around with a gun in his hand. He had to put the gun back in the box reluctantly. We haven't figured out the identity of our father yet, and what our eyes represent. Shuzaham whispered. He is a hybrid. Lu Mingfei pushed the suitcase back under the table and spoke. Hybrid? Lu Mingfei nodded. Human and false god, or human and alien, that is, those hybrid lights of the Dragon clan. I guess it is most likely the latter. In the negotiation with the little devil Lu Mingfei just now, the other party mentioned a super hybrid. Connecting the information here, Lu Mingfei quickly guessed the conclusion. Your father is a hybrid human with alien blood. He sneaked into this city in order to find or kill the false god. Since you're his son, it is normal that you inherited some of his alien bloodline. Shuzaham seemed to be accepting and digesting this fact. He was silent for a long time before asking, "What about you? Do you also have alien bloodline?" Although I don't want to admit it, I do have the alien bloodline called the Dragon Clan. If I see my parents later, I will have to ask them about it. Mingfei sighed. The pure human bloodline was suddenly mixed with unclean things, which was a bit of a blow to him. Then what should we do now? I only have a pair of sunglasses, and we might attract some attention if we go out with these eyes. Shuzaham said. Calm down and pray devoutly to the Emperor. As a warrior of the Emperor, you must first learn to control your emotions and keep your mind calm at all times. From now on, I will teach you how to confess your faith to him. Mingfei's face became serious. Since the other party chose to believe in the Emperor, he had to start with a confession of faith. With every bit of my strength, with every inch of my will, with every bit of my soul, I swear that my soul and my faith belong to the immortal Emperor, the Shepherd of Souls. When Mingfei and Shuzaham walked out of room 062, it was already 8 o'clock in the evening. The golden pupils of both of them had gone out and returned to normal. It's a bit late. Shuzaham closed the door of room 062 and locked it. The smell of kerosene in the corridor was still strong, and the old incandescent lamps flickered, making this place look more like a horror movie scene where something was destined to happen. I have to go back quickly. I hope my aunt has kept some food for me. Mingfei said. Back to the liquidation team office on the first floor, Uncle Shu had already left. Shuzaham put the key back in the drawer and wrote a note on the table. Don't you keep the key for yourself. You can find a place to move everything there out. It's okay, I've made a mold with soft rubber, and I can make 2 new ones later. Shuzaham said. The abandoned factory area was dead silent at night. It was probably cloudy, and even the stars were not visible in the sky. It was pitch dark when walking on the road. But this was nothing to Mingfei and Shuzaham. Their eyes can now see normally in the dark, probably because of the influence of the alien blood in their bodies. Ding! Suddenly, a melodious bell sounded in the factory ruins. Thanks to Hanpaimo, Shudorziquipingi, Shia 2-0-1-9-0-4-1-9-1-1-1-9-5-7, Jotalankanadioda, Mercuritut, the 5 Angels of Death, for their reward support. Thanks also to other loyal astates for their monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Thank you. Chapter 14 Happy National Day. A little chapped Happy National Day to everyone. The third update is a little late. I had a stomachache while sitting there, and I thought I was cursed by my kind father. I prayed devoutly to the Emperor. I'm really honored that everyone likes this book. I will write it well. Then there is some self-questioning and self-answering, which can be regarded as a preview, or a vaccination. Q. What should we do if the 2 different worldviews come together and the combat power collapses? A. According to the old method, Jiangnan should fight with GW. There is a high probability that GW will win, because there is an armored vehicle painted with the Ultramarines at the door of GW. I can only say fine-tuning. Q. Are there 19 operations? Is there a chainsword? Is there a bolter? Is there a power armor? Is there a dreadnought? A. There should be, yes. 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 Q. Why do you want to serve in the Weepers? A. Because we have to make sure that Mingfei is still a normal person after he comes back. We can't put him in the Night Lords of Batman. At first, I wanted to write about the Nova Marines, but then I saw the great beginning of the book review by Arkaling Naut, so I decided to write about the Weepers. For now, I'll just ask and answer so many questions for myself, and start updating the first chapter tomorrow, so that at least the second chapter can be written while I'm slacking off at work. Chapter 15 Dirty History. The sound of the bell echoed in the dead silence of the abandoned factory. This sound seems to come from over there. Shuzaham listened carefully to the direction of the bell, that was the other side of the abandoned factory. How could such a church-like bell suddenly ring in such a long abandoned garbage factory without even lights? He suddenly remembered what Uncle Shu said during the day, that a group of troublesome guys settled here. Could it be related to them? Let's go and take a look. Mingfei didn't think about it and ran directly in the direction of the bell. Shuzaham had to keep up, and at the same time took out his mobile phone to send a text message to his family saying that he would play more basketball with his classmates and go home later. The place where the bell rang was a dilapidated church. It was hard to imagine that there was a church in such a place that had been abandoned for so long. Mingfei and Shuzaham were like two ghosts, looking at the church from afar on the edge of darkness. Groups of believers in black robes quietly filed out of the abandoned factory buildings, holding blood-red candles in their hands to illuminate their pale and pious faces. There were many vehicles parked on the road not far from the church. Under the bright light of the car lights, Shuzaham noticed that the license plates of those cars were covered with black cloth. But some of the car logos still shone in the bright light, the silver trident, the letter B with wings. The people who got off the car also put on black robes, lit candles, and joined the ranks of believers. There are heretics here, Mingfei said in a low voice, his voice cold. Do you want to call the police? Shuzaham asked, holding the tennis bag containing Murazame in his hand. Religion, remote churches, believers regardless of gender, age, wealth, and poverty, and seemingly weird ways of praying, there is only one result of these elements mixed together. Calling the police to let the police come to destroy and eradicate this evil organization is the best way to deal with it. No hurry, sneak in and see. In principle, these pagans should be purified, but now the environment is different and the identity is different, so we can only solve it in a more gentle way. Mingfei sighed. Do you want to find the leader of this organization and kill him, purify him? Shuzaham was silent for a while before speaking. That depends on the situation, but I always feel that they're not that simple. Let's go and see first. A middle-aged couple got out of the car and just turned off the light when they were dragged silently into the darkness beside the road by two ghosts. A moment later, the ghosts reappeared. They changed into black cloth robes in the back seat, lit candles, and naturally merged into the ranks of believers. Shuzaham was a little nervous. He kept his head down and held the burning candles forward, with Murazame's cold scabbard under his armpits. The two of them followed the believers into this dilapidated church and followed them to place the burning red candles on the candlesticks on both sides. But the main light source was the blazing bonfire on the high platform of the church. The swaying flames illuminated the carved glass and red murals on the wall. The believers sat down in an orderly manner without a trace of noise. It was obviously not the first time they'd participated in such a gathering. Mingfei and Shuzaham sat in the aisle of the third row by the wall. Not only can they observe the murals and carved glass on the wall better here, but they can also ensure that they can respond flexibly in case of emergencies. At first, Mingfei thought that the images on the wall were all portraits of heretical religions, but the more he looked, the more he felt something was wrong. The images on the murals were obviously the alien race called the Dragon Clan. Those pairs of golden eyes were very eye-catching on the scarlet-based portraits. The story of dragons and humans was painted on the carved glass and murals. The general idea was that the great dragon that dominated everything gave a drop of divine blood to the loyal mortal servant, and the mortals were transformed and became immortal. In the expression of the portraits, the mortals' eyes also turned into the same golden color as the dragons. Is this how the so-called hybrids come from? Mingfei frowned and looked at the church platform. The seats in the church were full of believers, and two men in black robes suddenly appeared from the shadows and closed the door. There was a dead silence. Welcome the messenger of God, a hoarse but respectful voice came from the shadows, and a tall blond white man appeared in front of the believers. His eyes were as bright and dazzling as gold. Those eyes. It's really the messenger of God. The dragon really exists. Messenger of God, please convey the will of the dragon to the loyal believers. Please grant us immortality. Seeing the appearance of this white man, the believers were excited and stood up and shouted. Western Church, Eastern Story, Western Man, and a hybrid of a human and a dragon. Shuzaham felt it was very absurd and ridiculous. When he was about to take advantage of this noisy opportunity to secretly call the police, the man on the high platform suddenly recited a low syllable. The believers quieted down instantly. Their fanatical and excited expressions suddenly became dull and empty, and they sat back in their seats woodenly. The rhythm of the man's chanting syllables became faster and faster, and finally evolved into the same chaotic chant. What's going on? Shuzaham subconsciously looked at Mingfei beside him, but the next moment, his head started to ache violently again. He seemed to be back to that rainy night, facing the howling of the shadows on the Maybach. The snakes were dancing in his mind, and each snake was telling the unknown sins of the ancient times. The girls rolled on the stone altar, screaming in pain, as if they were about to give birth. The brutal baby tore open the belly of the young mother, screamed and rushed to the crowd outside the bronze cage, but was soon stabbed to death by a spear. The less brutal baby was left behind and grew up in the cage with metal chains. Then a new young girl was pushed into the cage. A brutal, bloody and sinful history of the birth of a hybrid was truly presented to Shuzahan. There was no blood given by the dragon at all. Only the greedy humans who are thirsty for the alien power of the dragon clan made the girls pregnant with offspring with dragon blood, and then used their lives to dilute the brutal blood of the dragon clan from generation to generation. Finally, a stable human dragon hybrid was born, stealing the power and authority of the alien race. These dark and bloody scenes were like sharp needles piercing his brain. Shuzahan endured the severe pain and chanted the prayers taught by Lumenfei in his heart. Soon, the bloody scenes in his mind were purified and melted by a bright and sacred golden light, and the severe pain disappeared. Shuzahan regained consciousness, gasping for breath, and was surprised and happy. The blond man's chaotic chanting stopped at some point, and the dim church fell into a dead silence again. The faces of the believers were still dull and lifeless, like lambs to be slaughtered. The butchers were walking down the platform, and the butcher knives in their hands were shining coldly. "It's so dirty." Shuzahan heard Lumenfei's whisper beside him, and his cold tone was filled with undisguised hatred. The pair of golden vertical pupils that had been extinguished more than an hour ago now quietly lit up again. Chapter 16 Killing the Heretics. The situation in front of him was even more serious than Shuzahan had imagined. This had already exceeded the bottom line of the religious gathering. This was a blasphemous sacrificial ceremony. The ground beneath his feet lit up with a red light, and scarlet lines formed dense patterns and symbols, covering the entire church. The believers were affected by some unknown means, and they were as dull and lifeless as demented children. 4 butchers in black robes and wearing green masks walked down from the platform, ready to swing their butcher knives at the sacrifices waiting to be slaughtered. "I'll kill the one on the stage." Lumenfei only said this, and he had already left his seat and pounced on the platform like a lion hunting. The white man on the platform, who was preparing for some kind of ceremony, immediately noticed that 2 pairs of dazzling golden eyes lit up among the believers below. He shouted angrily, which translated into English means, "Kill those 2 first." The 4 butchers turned their heads at the same time, and the dark golden pupils under the masks locked onto Shuzahan and Lumenfei. One of the butchers was standing in the way of Lumenfei's rush to the platform. His sturdy figure was like a small mountain. He threw the butcher knife in his hand at Lumenfei. The knife was a wide and heavy knife, usually in the hands of the butcher in the vegetable market. It is also called a pork knife. But the next second, Lumenfei accurately caught the handle of the meat cleaver that was flying rapidly. Then he threw it back to the butcher. Most of the blade at the meat cleaver sank into the butcher's forehead, cutting off the mask on his face. But such a serious injury did not make the butcher fall down immediately, and he didn't even make a sound. He opened his sturdy arms and wanted to grab Lumenfei, who rushed in front of him. But Lumenfei just slightly turned sideways to avoid the butcher's attack, and at the same time reached out to pull out the meat cleaver stuck in the butcher's forehead, turned the blade back, and gave the butcher a ruthless throat cut. From then on, Lumenfei's running steps did not stop for a moment. Killing the butcher was like a piece of cake, as easy as seeing a relative's naughty kid destroying your chess model at home and then you rushed up to give him 2 slaps. In the blink of an eye, Lumenfei had already approached the platform. The blond man was already prepared to face this boy who pounced on him like a lion. The bloody meat cleaver in Lumenfei's hand fell on his head, and the man raised his hand to block it. Clang! The man's black hairy arm seemed to have turned into steel, and the blade actually hit it and sparked, but he was unharmed. Lumenfei frowned. This heretic actually had the ability to harden his body similar to that of a biochemical psychic. He decisively threw away the meat cleaver and switched to close combat with the opponent. Seeing this, the blond man showed a sneer at the corner of his mouth, as if mocking Lumenfei's overestimation of his own abilities. His unique ability, Word Spirit Immortality, can strengthen his body to the titanium alloy level in a short period of time. He can even punch through bulletproof steel plates. Just a stinky kid, the man thought to himself, and his fist hit Lumenfei's face mercilessly. As long as he hits this punch, the kid's head will definitely be blown up on the spot. Of course, the premise is that he can hit it. In Lumenfei's golden vertical pupils that look like a top predator, the man's movements seem to be slowed down several times, and there is no threat at all. It's as if his body has undergone the 10th stage of Astate's transformation surgery, the implantation of the transcendental lobe. Not only does he have supervision far beyond that of ordinary people, but he can also see objects and movements that move at extremely fast speeds, even including the trajectory of bullets. The blond man soon felt powerless, as if he was boxing with a shadow. In just 2 minutes of hand-to-hand combat, he didn't even touch Lu Mingfei. Instead, Lu Mingfei used various technical and superb wrestling techniques to make him come into close contact with the ground again and again. Damn, what's wrong with this brat? The blonde man was getting more and more irritated. The time for his word spirit immortality to strengthen his body was not infinite. If I keep wasting time like this, sooner or later this brat will seize the opportunity to kill me with a knife. He gritted his teeth, gave up punching, and turned to pounce on the table behind him, which was piled with various items. A fist-sized human skull, a test tube filled with scarlet liquid. I really don't want to waste alchemical props in a place like this. The blonde man grabbed what he wanted at once, a small black metal bottle with silver patterns painted all over it. He turned around and wanted to smash it at Lu Mingfei's feet with a fierce look. But he saw the black muzzle of the gun in Lu Mingfei's hand. It was a silver Smith & Wesson revolver. Lu Mingfei didn't know where he took out such an extremely dangerous guy. The situation changed instantly. Bang. 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 Lu Mingfei fired 5 shots in a row. The sound of the gun was deafening, and the specially made dangerous bullets wrapped in violent kinetic energy opened a blood flower on the blonde man's forehead. The first bullet was like a nail stuck in the man's enhanced body. The remaining 4 bullets were like heavy hammers that hammered the bullets into the man's skull. When he was dying, the blonde man wanted to throw away the black bottle in his hand, but it was immediately taken away by Lu Mingfei. When he was no longer able to maintain the strengthening of the word spirit on his body, Lu Mingfei filled him with the last bullet in the gun. It's good to have a gun, Lu Mingfei thought to himself. He removed the shells of the revolver in his hand and replaced them with new silver bullets one by one. The gun came from Xu Tianzhao's equipment box. After all, he couldn't help but secretly took one, and he didn't expect it to come in handy immediately. After confirming that the heretic who wanted to perform the blasphemous sacrificial ritual was completely dead, Lu Mingfei looked at Xu Zihan. Xu Zihan, holding the alchemical weapon, Murazim, fell into a disadvantage when surrounded by 3 butchers. After all, he is still a high school student. He can't kill without blinking an eye like Lu Mingfei, who can chop off a butcher's head with one knife and end the battle quickly. In addition, there are a bunch of ordinary believers who are not sure whether they are brainwashed or hypnotized, which makes Murazim, who is already not good at playing here, even more restrained. Sorry, I have a lot of things to do at work today, so I have less time to slack off and write. Then there are 2 inners in the community next door. I just came back from the nucleic acid test. I will try to finish the 3rd chapter before 12 o'clock. Chapter 17 Castle. As if nothing happened, I owe you 3 chapters. Finally, the 3 butchers who perceived Xu Zihan were shot in the head by Lu Mingfei's revolver, and the battle to eliminate the evil heretics finally came to an end. You don't need to feel psychologically burdened when dealing with such guys. Lu Mingfei patted Xu Zihan on the shoulder and comforted him. He took the Murazim from Xu Zihan's hand and lifted the black robe of one of the butcher's bodies. The muscular body was covered with black and red lines, like thorns growing from the inside of the body, forming strange symbols. Lu Mingfei did not remove the butcher's mask. Blasted from the back of the head by a specially reinforced bullet, the face under the mask was probably a blur of flesh and blood. As for whether these butchers were still human physically, Lu Mingfei didn't care. Since they pointed the tip of the knife at humans, they are traitors and evil heretics. Our responsibility is to eliminate and purify them. I see. What about these people? Should I call the police? Xu Zihan wiped his sweat and felt a little ashamed. In less than 3 minutes, Lu Mingfei had killed the alien hybrid with special abilities, while he was still here, afraid of wolves and tigers, and got a lot of injuries. No hurry, there is one thing that has not been dealt with. Lu Mingfei looked at the believers in the first row of seats not far away, and raised the silver revolver in his hand. Don't pretend, I know you are not affected by the power. If you don't reveal your identity, I will treat you as an accomplice of that heretic. There are still enemies. Xu Zihan was shocked and immediately began to be alert. Don't be impulsive. Let's talk it out. I'm a good person. As soon as Lu Mingfei said this, a female scream suddenly rang out from the believers in the first row. She raised her hands and stood up to surrender. Show your identity. Who are you? Iris Sani, a graduate of Castle College in 2005 and the current executive department specialist. I sneaked in here to track down this fallen hybrid. The girl was still screaming. Castle College. Lu Mingfei and Xu Zihan looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. How could it be such a coincidence? They just learned from Xu Tianzhao's secret room that Castle was related to the mixed bloods, and now a graduate of Castle College suddenly appeared here. Take off your hood, turn around, and don't act rashly. Lu Mingfei said. The girl named Iris Sana turned around tremblingly. With the light in the room, the two could see each other's white hair and equally pale face. Are you the only one? No companions? No, if I knew the scene was so terrible, I would never come alone. Iris had a sad face. Although she was a foreigner, her Chinese was surprisingly good. Okay, let's have a good chat. It just so happens that we have a lot of questions to ask you. Lu Mingfei put away the wheel. You two little brothers, feel free to ask anything. I will tell you everything I know. Iris hurriedly ran to Lu Mingfei and nodded. Your Chinese is really good. Shuzham couldn't help but praise him. That's a must. After all, the college is promoting Chinese campuses now, and I've been assigned to the branch here, so I have to do well. Iris smiled. She felt that the two boys in front of her were like angels, full of security. Especially this young man who looked young but had golden eyes as bright as a light bulb. She saw with her own eyes that the high-risk fallen hybrid had his head blown off by this young man in less than 3 minutes. Lu Mingfei felt a strange feeling in his heart. This white-haired girl is too timid. The white-haired girls he had met before were more loyal, brave, and good at fighting than each other. With fanatical beliefs to purify countless heretics and aliens, even the powerful Astates sometimes can't compare to these sisters. Let's leave here first. How to deal with it? Burn it down. Lu Mingfei glanced at this sinful church. Don't. Shuzham and Iris both spoke out to stop him. I can notify the branch's professionals to handle it. This should be a C. No, B-level incident. Iris trembled and took out a black mobile phone from her arms. Report to the branch. This is Iris Sana. Report your situation. A dull male voice came from the phone. C-level fallen hybrid Clay has been shot dead. Please send someone to the scene as soon as possible to deal with the follow-up matters. There are a large number of innocent people who have been brainwashed at the scene. Iris tried to make her voice calm. Got it. The rescue team will rush to the scene immediately. Please stay at the scene to respond. ... Iris wanted to say something, but Lu Mingfei looked at her coldly, and she immediately put away her phone and dared not say anything. The three of them left the dark and weird church and came to the dark outside. Lu Mingfei and Shuzham's 2 pairs of golden eyes slowly extinguished and returned to normal black pupils. This scene made Iris marvel. Where did this powerful and stable hybrid come from? Tell us about your Castle Academy. Lu Mingfei said. But according to the Abraham contract, students of Castle Academy are not allowed to disclose relevant information about the academy to other unknown hybrids, Iris said in great embarrassment. Then what information do you have that you can share? Lu Mingfei asked. Iris thought seriously for a moment, then slowly uttered a few words. My measurements, preferences, type of boys I like, do these count? No. Lu Mingfei shook his head. You are calmer than I thought. Little brother. Iris' eyes widened. I really want to eat you now, physically. Lu Mingfei sighed. If only there were gene detection nerves in his head, he wouldn't have to waste time with this white-haired girl. He could just chop off a palm and chew it, and the gene detection nerves that have become part of the brain and central nervous system would be able to directly obtain part of her memory. This kind of thing is commonplace for him, and he can't even count how many corpses he has chewed to obtain information and intelligence. He even forced himself to eat the corpse when it was rotten. Iris took several steps back in fear after hearing this. Let's go, we should go back. Lu Mingfei put away his gun and turned to leave. Then Castle College. Shuzham couldn't forget the Castle College his father mentioned, and was unwilling to give up this clue that was delivered to his door. It's okay, they will take the initiative to find us. I just don't know what method they will use to find us. Lu Mingfei smiled. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 18 Invitation. The next day. The door of my aunt's house was knocked again. Who is it? You don't know how to choose the time. At his mother's call, Lu Mingfei reluctantly put down the QQ chat on the computer and hurried to the living room to open the door. He wanted to run back to the room to continue surfing after opening the door, but when he saw the pretty girl standing outside the door, Lu Mingfei's eyes lit up, and he felt like Jia Baoyu Solindayu who had just entered the Jia mansion. I have seen this sister before. Hello, does Lu Mingfei live here? The white-haired Linda you asked with a smile. The light in Luminx's eyes dimmed. Your intelligence network is bigger than I thought. You found my house so quickly. Do you have any information to share now? Mingfei glanced at Luminx, who was eavesdropping in a corner, and turned to go downstairs. Iris-san hurriedly followed. Yes, I can share some, but if you want to know more specific information, you'd better meet Professor Manstein first. I'm here to pick you up. Professor? Mingfei turned his head and his eyes stayed on Iris's chest. Unlike the girl who was almost scared silly yesterday, Iris looked beautiful and generous today. The exquisite dark green suit was matched with a dark blue short skirt. The dark rose-red scarf was particularly bright against the white shirt. The whole person was filled with the breath of youth, but Mingfei was not interested in this. He paid attention to the half-rotten World Tree emblem embroidered on the chest pocket, which was exactly the same as the emblem on Shu Tianzhao's weapon bot in the dark room. Poke your eyes out. Iris blushed and subconsciously covered her chest with her hands. Don't get me wrong, I'm just looking at the emblem on your clothes. Tell me, who is the Professor Manstein you were talking about? Mingfei turned his head away and stopped looking at her. He is the director of the discipline committee of our college, in charge of student discipline. I was deducted a lot of credits by him before. Iris calmed down and said, what did he want to ask me for? Invite you to study in our college. It is said that after learning about you, Principal Ange asked Professor Manstein to fly here overnight. Principal Ange? Hilbert Jean Ange? Mingfei remembered the piece of paper that recorded the summer morning incident, which mentioned that Hilbert Jean Ange was the only survivor. Do you know Principal Ange? Iris widened her eyes. So you were related. No wonder Professor Manstein came in person. No, I just know his name, I don't know him. Also about the invitation you mentioned, Castle College is a school that specializes in recruiting mixed blood. Mingfei asked. Yes, those who come out of our Castle College are all dragon-slaying elites. Iris proudly raised her plump chest. Mingfei raised his eyebrows. Slaying dragons? Is it to kill those aliens called dragons? It's interesting. The hybrids who stole the power of the aliens are now fighting against them. After learning about the bloody, dirty and disgusting history of the hybrids last night, his impression of the hybrids has fallen to the bottom. But now it seems that these so-called hybrids have become a little more aware. But your performance last night didn't look like an elite dragon slayer. Iris covered her face with her hands. Don't say it, that was a special case. The intelligence of the branch was wrong. That fallen hybrid is proficient in black alchemy, has a lot of alchemical items on him, and his words are high serial number dangerous words like immortality. I'm obviously just a. Is the word spirit the power you stole from the aliens? Mingfei interrupted Iris's chapter. What do you mean by the power you stole from the aliens? Aren't you also a hybrid? Your eyes were as bright as light bulbs last night, and I don't even have that kind of eyes, Iris muttered. Don't talk nonsense. That's right. That's one of the special powers that hybrids get from the dragon bloodliner. Iris stood at attention subconsciously and answered. What does it mean to be a corrupted hybrid? When the dragon bloodliner in a hybrid is too high, the dragon nature swallows up the humanity, and the mind is corrupted. This kind of information is a relatively confidential file even in the academy. Okay, I understand what you mean. That is to say, these corrupt guys can be purified directly. Mingfei nodded. I don't think I have ever said the word purification, Iris said timidly, feeling that the little brother in front of her had a strong murderous intention. Besides me, can my brother also went to Castle Academy? Mingfei asked. At this time, they had already walked onto the street, and the young and beautiful girl could attract the attention of others no matter where she walked. You mean the handsome boy with a sword? He is also on the list of the college's invitations this time. Please talk to Professor Manstein about the details after you meet. Iris sighed, walked to the pink Porsche parked on the side of the road, opened the door and made a concierge gesture. Now I'm just a pickup driver. Regent Hotel, VIP restaurant and bar on the 9th floor of the executive floor. Opening the door of the private room, Mingfei saw a bald old man wearing retro monocles. Hello, Mingfei. I'm Jim Rudolph Manstein, you can call me Professor Manstein. Manstein smiled and stood up to shake hands with Mingfei. Your Chinese is as good as Iris's. Mingfei also smiled back. Thank you for saving my student last night. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid the branch would have lost an excellent specialist today. Professor Manstein said. Iris lowered her head silently, not daring to look up. If you don't mind, let's talk about Castle College, Professor Manstein. Lumenfei opened the topic directly. Of course, I flew here from Chicago overnight just for this. Manstein nodded. How much do you know about hybrids and dragons now? I know a little. Dragons are aliens. We're hybrid humans who have reproduced with aliens through bloody and dirty means for generations, and then we will kill the dragons in turn. Lumenfei said calmly. Calling the dragon race aliens? It's a very novel and interesting name. Manstein nodded. I really like to do entrance training with students with strong receptive abilities. Most students often have to undergo a period of mental treatment after learning the true history of the world. But before getting into the topic, I would like to ask you to answer a question for me. Manstein's gentle look disappeared, and he looked at Lumenfei sternly. More than 2 months ago, you have always been a child with average grades, extremely lacking love and being withdrawn. Most of the time you played a game called StarCraft. But from one day on, you would go out at 4 in the morning to do all kinds of high-intensity physical exercises, and your academic performance was also improving by leaps and bounds. Especially in yesterday's accident, you behaved more like a seasoned warrior who had experienced many battles, rather than a cowardly child. I would like to ask you to explain why such an unusual change has occurred in you. Chapter 19 Admission Interview. Are you spying on me? Lumenfei frowned. I don't mean to invade your privacy, but it is a hard rule of Castle College to discover and spy on potential hybrids, especially if your parents are also hybrids. Manstein explained. My parents? Are they also in Castle College? This word is a little strange to Lumenfei now. He is no longer the child who lacks love. Under the guidance and cleansing of the Emperor's glory and fighting side by side with his blood brothers in the war group, he learned to love and protect mankind, and hates heretics and aliens who hurt mankind. They are honorary alumni of Castle College, but it is said that they have been busy running around the world with important projects, so I haven't seen them. Manstein said. Okay, about my changes, Lumenfei took a deep breath and slowly said, please allow me to introduce my belief to you, the great lord of humanity, the Emperor. Emperor? Professor Manstein was stunned. He didn't expect Lumenfei to come up with such an answer. Yes. He is the patron saint of all mankind. He loves all beings and is the tower of hope for mankind in the dark galaxy. He is immortal and has existed long before the first city of mankind was built. He has guided mankind forward in different identities in different eras. His glory protects the heroic souls and returns them to the golden throne, rather than falling into the abyss of filth. Lumenfei turned into a fanatical missionary again, and he kept telling Manstein about the greatness of the Emperor. Manstein glanced at Iris Sanded behind him, who also had a dull and confused look on her face. He had to interrupt Lumenfei in advance. I'm sorry to interrupt your preaching, Lumenfei. If you are willing to accept the invitation to enroll, I will indicate in your enrollment information that you were a believer of the Emperor. It's the Emperor's angel of death. Lumenfei corrected seriously. Professor Manstein took a deep breath. Okay, Lumenfei, the angel of death, please tell me, is what you told me related to the question I asked you to answer? It was by pursuing that great guidance and belief of the Emperor that I cut off my past cowardice and ignorance. Lumenfei crossed his hands in front of his chest and recited devoutly. Okay, Lumenfei, the angel of death, I will report your answer to Principal Ange truthfully. Professor Manstein's forehead veins throbbed, and he took another deep breath and said in a deep voice. The college doesn't seem to reject religious beliefs. Lumenfei's eyes lit up. The primary goal of our college is to slay dragons. As long as it does not violate school rules, you can even apply to the college to hold a school-wide mass or sacrifice. If the Emperor you believe in can give you divine power to let you kill a few more second-generation species, I don't mind writing a recommendation letter to the board of directors to let the entire college believe in the Emperor you mentioned. Manstein spoke a long paragraph in one breath, got up angrily and left the private room. You're done, you dare to offend Professor Manstein. After Manstein left the private room, Iris came over with a look of you're done. Why is he so angry? Lumenfei was puzzled. You're still playing dumb. He asked you to answer questions but you preached to him. Any professor would be furious. You're done. Professor Manstein is the director of the discipline committee. If you offend him, you will be checked in your dormitory every day after you enroll. Iris reminded nervously. He didn't say he would invite me to the college, what a pity. Lumenfei felt a little sorry. Originally, his interest in Castle College was only on the information about aliens they had. But Manstein's words immediately made him excited. You're still pretending. The principal has probably already decided on your admission. Iris leaned close to Mingfei's ear and whispered. Professor Manstein is probably here just like me to go through the motions. He should have called the principal to complain about you when he just left, but as long as the principal has no objection, Iris suddenly heard the noise and quickly ran back to her original position and stood up with a stern face. Professor Manstein returned to the private room, and his expression showed no joy, anger, or sorrow. Congratulations, Mingfei, the angel of death. The principal has acknowledged your faith and change. Your specific admission matters will be arranged together after the second candidate. Okay. Mingfei was a little surprised. The principal named Hilbert Jinange seemed to know and trust him quite a bit. Could it be that they had met in the past? Not long after, the second candidate pushed open the door of the private room. Shuzaham walked in with a black extended tennis bag on his back. When he saw Mingfei, his tense expression eased a lot. Hello, you must be Shuzaham. Professor Manstein reorganized his expression and smiled. The communication with Shuzaham was much smoother than Mingfei. He was not under the surveillance of Castle Academy. Professor Manstein only asked him when he awakened the dragon bloodliner in his body. Shuzaham only said that his bloodliner suddenly awakened on the night of the typhoon a few days ago, and did not directly reveal the story of Maybach and Odeon. Both of them had no objection to enrolling in Castle. Shuzaham was originally going for his biological father Shu Tianzhao, and wanted to work hard to accumulate strength and rush into the rainy night again. Mingfei wanted to vigorously promote the light of the Empire while eliminating the aliens. And according to Professor Manstein's introduction, the Academy seemed to have its own exclusive mechanical technology department. This made him more interested. What is the most important thing for an Astata? Absolute loyalty and firm belief to the Emperor. A superhuman body transformed by 19 surgeries. Fighting brothers fighting side by side. Chains, warwords and grenade guns. Now Mingfei has already achieved 1.5, and still needs to. His loyalty and faith have never wavered. Although Shuzaham is not very good at fighting, he is already a brother who has fought side by side with him. The 19 operations to become an Astatas are difficult to achieve with the current technology in his hometown. As the embodiment of the Emperor's wrath, the difficulty of making chainsaw swords and bolt guns is obviously lower than the 19 operations. Since there is a mechanical technology department, I just need to draw the drawings to these professionals, and maybe I can really make it by copying the tiger and drawing the cat. After all, I can modify a simple version of the chainsaw sword with a landscaping chainsaw. How are you going to convince your family? Shuzaham suddenly asked. Convince what? Mingfei, who fantasized about the feeling of holding the combat equipment in his hands again, was stunned. Castle College is a higher education institution, that is, a university. We haven't even finished high school yet, you have to come up with something to convince your family. Shuzaham reminded him, and he was just taking a pile of Castle College's official documents handed to him by Professor Manstein. Thanks to the chief think tank or master of this book, Kylin Nort, for his 10,000 reward. Thanks to Kidanuo, book friend 1-2-0-7-0-3-0-7-3-7-4-7-6-2-9, CHM-42, book friend 1-5-0-5-2-7-2-2-3-6-2-0-9-1-3, Eagle made of sand outside the window, Warhammer Brotherhood, book friend 2-0-1-7-0-2-0-6-0-1-1-5-4-5-0-6-1, Tom and Jerry, Chingsha Si Ching, Adana JT, book friend 1-6-0-6-2-6-2-3-4-8-1-2-8-3-5, Flying Slime, Leonie and the 11th U, Yanule, Shout Yuo and other Angels of Death for their reward support. Thanks to all the loyal Astates for their monthly tickets and reward tickets. Thanks to all the Astates for their love. The pressure is great, and I can only say that I will try my best to move forward. Chapter 20. Gate of Castle. On the surface, Castle College is an aristocratic private university located in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, USA. It has a long history and is not inferior to international famous schools such as Harvard, Cambridge, and Massachusetts in all aspects. The principal is also a famous Cambridge student, who devoted himself to education in his later years and is a great educator, but with Shuzaham's family's wealth and vision, his stepfather and biological mother probably would not agree with Shuzaham's choice to give up high school and go abroad to study, especially Castle, which is unknown to ordinary people. That's why he asked Manstein for stacks of official certificates about Castle College, photos of beautiful scenery in the college, and various certificates of international competition awards, such as windsurfing competitions, chess competitions, skiing competitions, etc. Yes, I still have to state that admission to our college requires the consent of the guardian. After all, we're recruiting students, not kidnapping people. Professor Manstein stated. I understand. I will go back and convince my family. Shoesham nodded. It's all the same. You go to high school to get into a good university and find a good job. Come to our college and you'll get a guaranteed job right away. It's a first-class, iron rice bowl. Iris Sanders said with a smile. Professor Manstein glared at her. Yeah, good luck. I'll rely on you. Mingfei said to Shoesham. Rely on me? Your uncle and aunt are your guardians, right? Seeing Mingfei's relaxed look, Shoesham was a little confused. Yes, as long as you succeed, I can just tell them Shoesham is also going to that school, and I won't have to waste so much time talking. ... Mingfei, you must have been deceived by a liar. Someone wants you to go to college not long after the high school entrance examination. It's still some Gaddafi college, it doesn't sound reliable. I think it's Castle College. Shoesham is also going to that school, and he asked me to go with him. Does that mean Minx can go with him? Aunt's attitude changed faster than Mingfei imagined. The next day, Mingfei and Shoesham came to the Regent Hotel again. It's great to see two outstanding young mixed bloods coming together. This means that your family agrees to your admission to Castle College, right? Professor Manstein sat upright and stared at the two. Before the two of them could answer, the white-haired senior sister Iris standing behind that professor said with a smile, It's useless to object. The academy will probably send someone to hypnotize you or your family members, and then capture you directly. Professor Manstein turned around and glared at her fiercely. Shoesham was speechless. The style of Castle Academy was indeed different. Ahem, if there is nothing else, then let's get started. Professor Manstein's face became serious, and he said in a deep voice, Now on behalf of Castle Academy, I would like to extend an invitation to you two to enroll. May I ask, Mingfei, Shoesham, do you two accept it? Iris stopped smiling, as if something was recording this moment. Accept. Accept. Two teenagers with different thoughts chose to join this unknown academy of alien blood. One for revenge. The other for purifying the aliens. A war hidden in history thus began. The voice print verification has passed, and I have obtained my personal authorization. The process begins. Shoesham, number 8.io, 60121. Mingfei, number 8.io, 71722. Already connected to Castle College. I'm Norma, and I am happy to serve you. Your tickets, passports and visas will be delivered within 3 weeks. Castle College welcomes you to join. A mechanical, crisp female voice calling herself Norma suddenly sounded in the private room. Professor Manstein showed a relieved expression on his face. He stood up and shook hands with the two future students respectively. Shoesham, Mingfei, the Angel of Death, welcome to Castle College. Norma will help you to do the next things perfectly. You have a title so soon? Shoesham whispered. He gave it to me, but I like it very much. Mingfei and Shoesham didn't know that everything just now is just the beginning. A large number of data packets poured out of the supercomputer named Norma and were heading to different corners of the world. Their names appeared on many people's screens and were remembered firmly, some were even engraved in their hearts. The data lock was released, and thousands of secret gateways were opened to the two of them. Castle opened its arms to welcome these two new students. In addition, the principal has promised to allocate $40,000 each as a scholarship for the two of you to enter Castle. Manstein said. Fuck. $40,000 each? Why didn't I have such benefit when I entered school? Iris couldn't help but burst out a sentence of Chinese quintessence with a clear accent. This is a scholarship program established by the principal himself. Students who receive his scholarships mean that they will have to go on a mission in their first year of enrollment. Professor Manstein glanced at her. In addition, you need to share part of the mission bonus of B-level Fallen Hybrid Clay Brand with these two. Iris wanted to argue, but in the end she lowered her head helplessly and lamented. It's really the previous wave that died on the beach. The last process was the negotiation with Shilan Middle School. When the principal heard that Shoesham was going to study abroad instead of attending an elite high school, he almost knelt down to him. But when he heard that he would receive a scholarship of $40,000 upon admission, he stood up again. He had never heard of Castle College, but he knew that dollar multiplied by 7.3. But what he couldn't understand was why Mingfei, an unknown boy who had only recently emerged, could be in the same foreign country and the same college as Mr. Xu. But Mingfei also earned $40,000. As a result, there were 2 more names on the list of the 2007 class of Shilan Middle School. The highest full scholarship in history has put a group of students admitted to famous universities below. Industrial wasteland on the outskirts of the city. Shuzaham returned to his father's room. After the full scholarship of Castle College arrived, he found Uncle Shu to contact the real estate company, bought a room, and replaced it with a new big lock. "Dad, I'm going to Castle." He looked at the family photo on the wall and said softly, "Thanks to the elegant big cabbage boss for the 5,000 reward support. Thanks to the book friends 20211121606154668 book friend 1207307347629 book friend 202232026037661 Thongxioitan, Shinru Tianren and other angels of death for their reward support. Thank you all loyal Astates for your monthly tickets and reward tickets. Thank you very much. I worked during the National Day holiday plus won the regional grand prize, and it was definitely not because I was lazy and didn't update. I still owe you 3 more updates, and I will make up for it. Chapter 21 Finger. The United flight landed safely at Chicago International Airport. Following the guidance of the Castle College admission guide distributed by Norma, Mingfei and Shuzaham took the subway for more than a dozen stops and arrived safely at the Chicago train station. Wasting time is a shameful act. While waiting for transportation, Mingfei was meditating and praying, and Shuzaham was also adapting to this pious ritual that could calm the soul. There is no CC-1000 express on the train schedule, and several station duty personnel have never heard of this express. Shuzaham held a Burger King paper bag in one hand and a magnetic card ticket in the other. The dark ticket was painted with a pattern of a giant tree with lush branches and leaves in silver. Their magnetic card tickets could indeed pass the ticket machine, but after waiting for a night, the so-called CC-1000 express still did not appear. Fortunately, the Chicago train station is as magnificent as a church, and the night is quiet and beautiful. It is not too bad to stay here for one night. Wait a minute, maybe I can come today, thank you. Mingfei took the steaming hot smoked beef burger from Shuzaham and took a big bite impatiently. Then his face was full of happiness and intoxication. You're welcome. Shuzaham took a sip of hot milk and realized that his brother enjoyed all kinds of delicious food very much. However, he did not ask too much about the various mysteries of the other party, and the 2 of them kept a subtle distance. But I have to admit that there is indeed a sense of security next to this brother who is 1 or 2 years younger than me. Shuzaham has been encouraging himself in his heart to get familiar with the battle as soon as possible, so that he can really fight side by side with Mingfei and fight back to the stormy night together. Uncle, can you give me something to eat? A pair of eyes shining like candlelight suddenly appeared and stared at the burger in his hand. Shuzaham was stunned and looked at the tall and burly young man in front of him. The face buried in the messy hair and beard can be regarded as handsome, the dark green plaid shirt and the dragging trousers are wrinkled and dirty, and it is unknown how long it has not been washed. I have another one here, you can have it. Before Shuzaham stretched out his hand, Mingfei smiled gently and handed over his second burger. Uncle. No. Angel. You are such a good person here. The young beggar was so excited that tears welled up in his eyes and he wolfed down the food. Are you a student of Castle College? Shuzaham suddenly asked after listening to the other party's fluent Chinese with a Beijing accent. The beggar was shocked when he heard it. He raised his head and tears welled up in his eyes. Dear ones. I finally found you. After 4 burgers and 2 cups of coffee, Finkel von Fringe raised his arms and shouted. Good. Resurrection. When does the CC-1000 Express usually come? Shuzaham asked this carefree German man. I need to see this. Finkel took out a wrinkled departure table from his bag, on which was the school emblem of the half-rotten world tree. I'm afraid I have to wait 2 days for this. 2 days? There's nothing I can do about it, future junior brother. This train only has people waiting for the train, not the train waiting for people. The college is in the mountains. If you don't take this, you can only take a helicopter. Finkel said helplessly. Why doesn't the Chicago train yard have a timetable for this train? Shusahan asked. This train is specially approved by the Chicago government. The branch line train runs at irregular intervals until its last conductor just died. Finkel looked indifferent. Anyway, I'm used to it. If the class is high, the instructor will send a special car to pick you up, and you'll use the VIP channel, unless the CC-1000 Express is a Land Raider. Mingfei is not interested in special cars or VIPs. He stared at this sloppy but strong German man, his eyes like looking at a mule about to be weighed. He needed a missionary to spread the glory of the emperor. Fenja, who was fluent in Chinese and a student of Kassel, was obviously a good candidate. But given his rather sloppy appearance, this candidate remained to be seen. Just then, bells and whistles rang in the empty station. At 6:23 inches the morning, the CC-1000 Express train arrived. The train is here. Fenja was excited. Why is it so fast this time? Two junior brothers, let's get on the train. He called out. A conductor in a dark green uniform appeared at the ticket gate. He was shaking a small golden bell in his hand and had a golden conductor badge on his hat. A pocket watch tied with a gold chain was put in the small pocket of his vest. On his chest hung a complicated and simple badge with a half-thriving and half-decayed giant tree. He glanced around the sparsely populated waiting hall, then quickly crossed the hall and came to Mingfei and Shusahan, ignoring Fenja who was stunned. Excuse me, Mr. Mingfei and Mr. Shusahan. I'm very sorry, there's a problem with the train because there are some urgent items that need to be transported. Can I see your tickets? He smiled modestly and bowed slightly. The few passengers in the waiting hall exclaimed in amazement, looking at Mingfei and Shusahan with jealousy and envy. The appearance of this elegant conductor seemed to bring people back to the time when this station was just built 100 years ago. At the time, trains were still the best way to travel, and those waiting for the train were all well-known figures. The ticket inspectors at the time were dressed like this, humble and warm, but energetic, smiling and greeting every passenger. Mr. Dog/Ms. 20, I wish you a good mood all the way. Unlike today, the people responsible for ticket checking are all low-income aunts, sitting there fat and too lazy to even stand up. Mingfei and Shusahan took out their tickets. The conductor waved a pair of shiny silver scissors, cut them beautifully, and then handed them back to the two with both hands. Welcome aboard. Hey, there's me too. Finger waved his ticket. The conductor glanced at him and took out a small card reader from behind. Here, swipe it yourself. You. Finger was annoyed by the conductor's completely different attitude. But in the end, he had no choice but to swipe the ticket on the machine himself. Beep. The card reader lit up green. Finger, are you going to be demoted again this year? I thought you were going to drop out of school this year. The conductor said with a smile, and his tone and smile were exactly like a hotel owner who mod Konyeji. Konyeji, did you steal someone's things again today? I've been demoted to E grade, how can I be demoted? This is the lowest. Finger had a bitter face. It is said that the professors of the academy are going to add a new F level. As the person who refreshes the lower limit of the rating every time, you should feel honored. The conductor put away the card reader and the smile on his face became humble again. S-level student Mingfei, A-level student Shusahan, welcome to take the CC-1000 Express. Professor Manstein is waiting for you on the train. Thanks to X Little Black Cat for the 5,000 reward support. Thanks to Andy Kchuanibin, Kizirni, Chapter 22 Admissions Counseling S-Class. Isn't it only the principal who is S-Class? Finkel's eyes widened and he dug his ears, suspecting that he had heard wrongly. More than that, there are more S-Class, but no more than 10. The conductor corrected. Shusahan was not surprised. With Mingfei's compact strength, it would be a surprise if he was in the same class as him. What about his father? Is he also S-Class? That powerful ability that makes the whole world seem to stop at this point? Please follow me, both of you, don't keep Professor Manstein waiting for too long. The conductor made a ceremonial gesture of invitation. Following the conductor onto the platform, the dark high-speed train stopped on the rails, dazzling silver-white flowers bloomed from the front of the train, and vine-like patterns spread from both sides to the body of the train. It was as gorgeous as a work of art. Mingfei's eyes lit up, and this train gave him a good impression. The two of them didn't bring much luggage, and they were all lightly packed. The pressure cooker, quilt, pickled vegetables and other sundries that his aunt wanted to stuff into Mingfei were all rejected by him. If possible, he would like to take the revolver with him, but he probably won't be able to pass the so-called customs security check. Even Shuzaham's Murazame can only be checked in by the college under the name of Crafts and Art. Welcome to Castle. The principal personally asked me to take care of the admission counseling. Manstein smiled at Mingfei and Shuzahan. At this time, both of them changed into the school uniform of Castle College, the same uniform that Iris Sani wore when she was a driver for Mingfei. Of course, the short skirt and white stockings were replaced with well-fitting dark trousers. Shuzahan is a clothes rack with excellent jeans. Even if it is a miscellaneous brand, he can wear it like a famous brand. Mingfei is slightly inferior, but the calmness between his eyebrows, which is calm even when the world collapses in front of him, also has a special temperament that is unfathomable. Very good, the clothes fit well. Manstein is very satisfied with the appearance of the two. Hey, the black tea is here. Finkel acted as a waiter, ran out with a tray, and poured a cup of steaming hot black tea for each of the three people. If you have nothing to do, sit aside. Next is the freshman orientation time. Manstein nodded slightly and took out a thick stack of documents from the briefcase next to his seat. No problem, my beloved Professor Manstein. Finkel showed a flattering expression, grabbed the tray and twisted his buttocks and sat aside. Okay, let's get started. Manstein ignored Finkel and pushed two documents in front of Mingfei and Shuzahan. Although you already know a lot of information about the dragon race and hybrids, there are still some hard rules of the college that need to be followed. Please sign this confidentiality agreement. Every student who enters Castle needs to sign this agreement. This is related to the purpose of our college. Abraham Indenture, Shuzahan whispered the name of the confidentiality agreement. No information about dragons and hybrids should be disclosed to ordinary people. Interesting, humans don't know that there are aliens in this world. Mingfei turned to the first page, and the first message he saw was this. He asked with a smile. I will only answer your questions after you sign the agreement. Professor Manstein was a little unhappy. Okay, no problem, Professor. Mingfei quickly turned to the last page, found the place to sign, and signed his name. Shuzahan, who was standing by, saw him sign, and quickly turned to the last page to write his name. Very good. Manstein put away the documents, his expression became serious, but he was not angry because of the hasty signatures of the two. I like to do admission training with students with strong receptive ability, especially the two of you who have awakened the dragon bloodline and are peeking into the truth of the world for the first time. This can save me a lot of energy for explanation. He stood up and lifted the oilcloth of the giant drawing board placed on another table. It was like a giant dragon sleeping in the dark opening its eyes. In the picture, the iron blue sky was mixed with the color of fire, and there was only one giant tree, hectares, Mingfei yawned, breaking the pressure that the painting had on everyone present. Why is it this alien again? Are there no others? Last time, the little devil played images of this black dragon and several other dragons of different colors in his mind. Professor Manstein's forehead veins throbbed. He held back the urge to scold and said, Dragon King Hog, the end of all things, the destroyer of the world. For thousands of years, the Dragon Kings have hidden in the shadows of human history. They were once the true creators of this world, and humans were just slaves. They hold the greatest power in the world. They are almost impossible to kill. Every kill obtained at the cost of countless sacrifices is nothing more than a long slumber for the other side. Now, they are reviving, vowing to dominate the earth and take back the world that belongs to them. And the hybrids of Castle are standing on the first front against them. We will send them back to the eggs to sleep for 100 years, or even really destroy and kill them. The biggest subject of Castle Academy is only one. That has always been dragon slaying. When the words dragon slaying came out of Professor Manstein's mouth, it was like a thunderous explosion. The sound echoed in the carriage for a long time, deafening. Good. Very spirited. Finkel cheered for the professor's words. Manstein glared at him fiercely. Shuzahan's worldview was once again greatly impacted. But with the experience of that rainy night, he quickly believed and accepted the fact that the dragon race was the greatest enemy of the hybrids and even humans. As for Mingfei, he raised his hand and asked, Then may I ask if the Academy knows where they are now? Do you have specific coordinates? Professor Manstein took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, The Angel of Death Mingfei. TSK, Finkel subconsciously covered his mouth to prevent himself from laughing. Perhaps with your strength, you're indeed worthy at the S-level evaluation given to you by the principal. But your arrogance and second-year syndrome have been challenging my patience. What is second-year syndrome? Mingfei didn't quite understand this term, and asked Shuzaham softly. Generally, the self-righteous thoughts, actions and values of adolescent boys. Shuzaham answered. For this, I need to show you the true power of the dragon race. Lest you become complacent after killing that fallen hybrid and mistakenly think that all dragons are garbage of that level. Professor Manstein said coldly, taking out a black password box from under the table. The password box was opened, and embedded in the box were 4 fist-sized grey octagonal flat columnar simple stones. On the surface of the stone, the fiery red liquid in a flowing state formed different patterns in the style of simple drawings. Derived from the lineage of the Bronze and Fire Kings, a masterpiece of alchemy of the next generation. The Academy temporarily named it, Word Spirit Talisman. You can also call them Zodiac Talismans. Thank you X Little Black Hat for your 5,000 reward support. Thank you Angie Kachunibin, Kizirni, and Yamor for your reward support. Thank you all loyal Astates for your monthly tickets and reward tickets. Thank you very much. I owe another update. I will make up for it after I have a break from National Day. I actually miss Red Horse a lot, so I don't have to go to work and can just stay at home and write. Chapter 23. Spell Zodiac Word Spirit Talisman. If you look closely, the pattern formed by the fiery red flowing liquid on the surface of the octagonal stone does indeed correspond to the 4 of the 12 Chinese zodiac signs: Ox, Dragon, Snake, and Rabbit. Is there anything special about these alien creations? Mingfei stretched out his hand with some interest, but was immediately stopped by Professor Manstein clapping his hands. You all have roughly known the information about the word spirit, right? He asked. The special power inherited from the bloodliner of humans after stealing the alien bloodliner. Mingfei answered. Although the wording is not very appropriate, the answer is correct. Manstein nodded. Word spirit is divided into many categories. Every hybrid needs to be highly nervous and resonate with the bloodliner when awakening the word spirit. But no matter what, a hybrid can only awaken and master one word spirit ability. Only the noble dragons can have multiple word spirit abilities at the same time. Mingfei frowned. The word noble should not be used for aliens. But each of these 4 talismans stores a different kind of word spirit. This is the mystery of alchemy. That descendant transformed the word spirit into a graphic and stored it on a carrier. Compared to them, the alchemy technology that humans have obtained is only superficial. Manstein took off the zodiac talisman with a snake pattern from the fixed rack of the box. Fingor, dim the lights. He looked solemn, holding the snake talisman tightly in his hand, and the pattern composed of the liquid flowing on the stone slab suddenly became bright. The next second, the light in the air changed. Manstein became blurred, and his figure disappeared along with the seat. Is this word spirit? Dark illumination? Finkel said in surprise. Yes, this snake talisman stores the word spirit. Dark illumination with serial number 69. The effect of this talisman, or the word spirit, is to release a small field with the user as the center. The light is refracted in a strange way in this field, creating an effect similar to invisibility. Manstein's voice came from the seat opposite. According to Einstein's relativity equations, distorting light requires a massive object of the magnitude of a star. Can a word spirit do this? Shuzaham suddenly spoke. Word spirits themselves are difficult to explain scientifically. Manstein said, and his figure reappeared. But compared to before he used it, his face was much paler, his forehead was covered with sweat, and he was panting as if he had just run 10 kilometers. This invisible method is just playing with light and shadow. Information such as smell and sound cannot be shielded by the dark illumination. If it is used in a bright environment, it will still leave traces like light ink in the air, so it is best to use this word spirit in a dim environment. You Chinese have an idiom called stirring up trouble. Using snakes as the carrier of the dark illumination probably also recognizes the powerful concealment of snakes. You can turn up the lights, Finkel. Manstein took out a white handkerchief to wipe the sweat from his forehead, put the snake talisman back into the groove in the box, and took out the rabbit pattern talisman at the same time. Using this alchemical tool consumes a lot of physical energy, and it will greatly stimulate the activity of the dragon bloodliner in the body. Long-term use may lead to the risk of becoming a Deadpool. Given my physical condition, I won't demonstrate the power of the rabbit spell to you. Manstein said. Then let me try it, it looks fun. Mingfei stretched out his hand with interest, but was stopped by Manstein's clap. This is a dangerous alchemical creation. Not a toy. Owning a spell is equivalent to owning a second word spirit. Manstein glared at him. The word spirit stored in this rapid talisman is Moment, serial number 72, a word spirit famous for super speed. It can greatly enhance the speed of the releaser. The releaser will feel that he can ignore the influence of gravity and Newton's second law in his own field, and continue to accelerate. Each acceleration will double his speed. The word spirit stored in the Ox talisman is the bronze throne with serial number 87. Finkel curiously poked his head over to take a closer look, but was immediately pushed away by Professor Manstein. The danger level of the fallen hybrid you killed last time should be B-level. He hid himself very deeply, which led to errors in the intelligence of the executive department. His word spirit. Immortality can also allow the releaser to strengthen himself in a very short time. The body can block bullets at close range and greatly improve the explosive power and endurance of the muscles. But the bronze throne can strengthen the hybrid to the body strength of a dragon and greatly improve its self-healing ability. This talisman is also one of the most durable. The enhancement of the bronze throne can make up for the physical consumption caused by using the talisman, but the stimulation of the dragon bloodline remains unchanged. The last one, the dragon talisman. Manstein carefully took out the talisman slate with a bright red dragon pattern and held it in his palm. It is the most powerful and dangerous of the 4 talismans discovered so far. It stores the word spirit. Junyan, serial number 89, which is a high-risk word spirit. Normal hybrids need to meditate and chant for a long time to release this word spirit, explosively igniting the fire element in the surrounding environment, forming high temperature, high heat and shock waves. But the dragon talisman does not need it. It only needs a light grab, and Junyan will be released automatically. It is equivalent to a napalm launcher with unlimited ammunition. After explaining, Manstein carefully put the dragon talisman back into the groove of the box, for fear of accidentally triggering Junyan and blowing the entire carriage to ashes. What about the rest? There are only 4 of the 12 zodiac signs here, so what about the other 8? Mingfei asked with great interest, staring at the dragon talisman. It feels like using this alien creation to temporarily replace the grenade launcher is also a great choice. Not sure, more than 30 years have passed since the first dragon talisman was discovered, and the Academy has found these 4 so far. Manstein closed the box, and the box automatically locked. There is no doubt that these alchemical items can be used as powerful weapons. A hybrid holding these 4 talismans is equivalent to carrying 5 kinds of words. Imagine that an invisible hybrid in the enhanced state of the bronze throne approaches you at a lightning speed, and then releases the monarch flame on you. What the hell is there to fight? If it were me, I would definitely kneel down and surrender on the spot. Finkel smacked his lips. I'm reminding them to be in awe of the unknown dragon power, not to show you how to surrender, Finkel. Manstein felt his blood pressure rising again. He should have left this guy at the train station and let him wait for the next CC-1000. Especially you, the $40,000 scholarship from President Angus is not that easy to get. I'm afraid it won't be too long. We will quickly arrange for you to participate in the first practical mission based on your ability. P.S. In the initial outline, this plot was intended to be a Georgia Stoneface plot, but an author friend reminded me that this plot has already been written in another excellent dragon fan work, so it was changed to the 12 zodiac talismans, which can be used as a powerful prop. In addition, I am not so arrogant as to insert other worldviews. Warhammer and dragons are enough for me. I'm honored that this work, which was originally just a work of making a living, has rushed to the top 10 of the new book list with your strong support. I'm really grateful. In order to avoid being approached by a whole legion of astities in the future, I will work hard to write. Welcome new battle brothers, and thank the veterans who support this book, especially the think tank or Grandmaster Kyling Nord. He enthusiastically explained every Warhammer element and gave me a lot of suggestions and settings. I'm really grateful. Regarding the emotional line, you can look forward to it, but don't comment on it. Yesterday, someone kept asking me to start a harem, which gave me a headache, so I deleted it. Okay, I will continue to slack off and write on my phone. Thank you for the 5,000 reward support from the big brother Mokizuki Weiyang. Thank you very much. Chapter 24 Hilbert G. Namgas, a scholarship of $40,000. Already got it. Finkel's eyes were as big as copper bells. Well, after the admission procedures were completed, the scholarship was already deposited into their accounts. Manstein said. Fuck. Finkel blurted out a Chinese quintessence, and his pronunciation was as clear as Iris's. Obviously, Castle College has done a good job in promoting Chinese. You got the scholarship before the 3-year exam even started. Finkel stared at Mingfei and Shuzaham with a burning gaze, as if he was staring at two gold mines. What is the 3-year exam? Shuzaham asked. He had just been silently digesting the knowledge about the world spirit. Don't worry too much about this. The dragon bloodline in your body has awakened, and you can even activate the golden pupil. The 3-year exam is just a formality for you. Manstein said. Okay. Shuzaham nodded in thanks. Mingfei was looking at the beautiful and flourishing red pine forest outside the window. In the blink of an eye, the bright and warm morning sun shone through the glass on him, as if he was wearing a golden gauze. The CC-1000 Express rushed out of the long red pine forest, and the view became extremely broad. In the coniferous forest in the distance stood an evergreen low mountain, and the ancient castle in the mountain was looming in hazy mist. It's so beautiful. Mingfei said softly. In the past, what I saw was either the dark universe with enemies on all sides, or the blood flowing like a river and corpses everywhere. When have I ever seen such a beautiful scene? Even the small coastal town could not have such a beautiful scenery. The same was true for Manstein's entrance training. No matter how terrible the aliens called the Dragon Clan were, and how they could do this and that to the world, it could not cause any waves in Mingfei's mentality. Because he had seen more brutal aliens that destroyed dozens or even hundreds of worlds. Instead, he was more interested in those small alien creations. The only thing that could cause Mingfei to be a little unstable was the alien blood in his body. We're almost at the academy. Manstein looked at the castle in the mountains, and his serious expression returned to calm at this moment. Welcome to castle, young half-bloods. He said so. The long black dragon slowed down quietly when approaching the platform, and slid into the platform smoothly, blowing up their dead leaves. The door of the carriage opened, and Professor Manstein walked out with a suitcase containing a talisman. It takes half an hour to get to the academy from here. I have notified the school affairs department. Then, he saw something, and his face suddenly became serious. Principal. Principal. Mingfei, who followed Manstein, looked at the old man waiting at the edge of the platform. He had a neatly combed silver-white hair, and a straight black suit set off his still tall figure. The ears left deep marks on his face, turning his skin into a graceful rock, but the lines were still hard. He leaned against a black Maserati, and saw everyone getting off the train with his silver-grey eyes, and a kind smile appeared on his face. The principal is always so coquettish. Mingfei heard Finkel, who was carrying luggage behind him, sighing. After learning that the two juniors had received tens of thousands of dollars in scholarships at such a young age, Finkel was very diligent in serving them as a mule. I didn't expect that I would have to trouble that principal to come in person. Manstein said. One of the most talented freshmen in this class was personally rated S-level by me, so of course I have to come and take a look. Hilbert G. Nange laughed heartily. Is the talisman okay? Very good, all 4 talismans are here, and they are even used as physical teaching materials for freshman counseling. Manstein said. Very good, it's a pity that these teaching materials can't be taken out often, otherwise I would consider holding a spell exhibition. Angus patted Manstein's shoulder gently, and his silver-grey eyes looked at Mingfei and Shuzaham. Welcome to school, talented young people. Of course, Littlefinger, you're obviously not a young person. So principal, you should let me graduate quickly. Finger's face fell. Do you know me? Mingfei tilted his head, and no matter how hard he tried to search for the fragments of his past memories, he still couldn't find any related fragments between himself and the old man. Of course I know you. In the words of your elders to the younger generation, I held you when you were a child. Angus said with a smile, his eyes full of undisguised love. Then he looked at Shuzaham again. This young man is also very good. I can see the lion's sharpness in your eyes. Shuzaham was stunned, and then bowed slightly to the principal to greet him. Okay, get in the car, guys. We're only one step away from the campus. Angus smiled and opened the door of the Maserati and sat in the driver's seat. Manstein got on the co-pilot, and the 3 students squeezed in the back. The back seat was originally quite spacious, but with Fingal, a German man who was as strong as a bull, sitting in it, it became crowded. Did Frost say anything when he saw these things? He wanted to keep the rabbit, but I refused. You did the right thing. These things should be placed in the ice cellar for the safest. The Maserati drove smoothly on the winding mountain road. Mingfei looked at Angus, who was chatting with Manstein with a smile, and couldn't help but think of the note of summer morning. 1900, he is at least over 100 years old now. That makes him the same age as me. Mingfei was a little surprised. In that war-torn universe, even the powerful entities sometimes might not serve for 100 years before dying in a tragic war. For ordinary people, wanting to live peacefully for more than 100 years is simply a fantasy. But then I thought, with the conditions in my hometown, it is not surprising that some people live for more than 100 years. Perhaps noticing Mingfei's eyes from the review mirror, Angus smiled and changed the subject. Mingfei, your parents asked me to say hello to you. Okay, thank you. Mingfei did not react much to this, just responded politely. I should have waited until you were in your 3rd year of high school to send you an invitation to Castle, but I didn't expect you to awaken your bloodline so soon. So I had to send you an invitation letter in advance. I believe your parents will be proud of you. Angus was as kind as the grandfather next door who held you up when you grew up. Okay, thank you. Mingfei nodded. I'm glad that you have come out of your past depression. I heard from Professor Manstein that your change comes from your faith. Manstein's face suddenly became a little unhappy. Yes. Mingfei was in high spirits. It's a good thing to have your own faith, but unfortunately, I haven't prayed to God devoutly for a long time. Ange said with a smile. Then you can pray to the great emperor now. Now please allow me to, Chapter 25 Forum. As for Mingfei's endless preaching, Angus just listened carefully with a smile. Professor Manstein opened the car window to let the wind into his ears, while Finkel looked at Mingfei as if he was a fool. Shuzaham had a calm face. Hearing his title, he is a very great human god. Okay, I will pray to him devoutly when I have a chance. Angus smiled. Do you need me to read you the prayers to the emperor? Mingfei said. Not now, you can write it down and have Professor Manstein send it to my office. Angus smiled gently. Manstein's body trembled when he heard it. Okay, no problem. Mingfei smiled. It seemed that this Principal Angus might have some common topics with him. Has Norma assigned their dormitories for the 2 of them? Angus asked. Area 1, 302, right next to Finkel's doghouse. Manstein took out his mobile phone and quickly flipped through it. Well, it's a pretty good assignment. With an older senior taking care of us, our underage freshmen will be able to get familiar with the college quickly. Ange said gently. Professor Manstein, you seem to have some misunderstandings about my dormitory, Finkel said weakly. Really? Then please explain why the big bone under your bed has not even changed its position during the 6 consecutive surprise inspections by the discipline committee. Manstein said expressionlessly. Finkel closed his mouth. The Maserati gradually slowed down and stopped in front of a cast-iron carved school gate. Welcome to Castle College. Step in with your own feet. This is a very memorable moment for freshmen. Ange said with a smile. I'm not a freshman, so there's no need. Finkel was very entangled. No, Professor Manstein and I are going to the ice house. You have to take the lovely freshman to the dormitory. The principal's order cannot be disobeyed. Finkel got off the car obediently and became a mule to carry the luggage for Mingfei and Shuzaham again. The school gate slowly opened, and the silver Maserati drove away. Most of the campus buildings are in medieval European style, and there is even a church in the woods in the distance. Many blonde and blue-eyed students walked on the wide stone road between the colleges, casting curious eyes on Mingfei and Shuzaham. Not long after, several blonde senior sisters who seemed to be younger than them came and enthusiastically introduced the history and characteristic buildings of the college to them in not very proficient Chinese. Mingfei just kept a polite smile. This is Odeon Square, and that is Valhalla. The beautiful blonde senior sister pointed to the blood-red Byzantine-style building in the center of the square and introduced it. The outer wall of Valhalla is carved with the world tree, and there is a heroic rooster statue on the top. Odeon Square. Mingfei and Shuzaham looked at each other. They knew that the Odeon named after this was derived from Norse mythology, not the false god on the rainy night. In addition to knowledge, there are many secrets hidden here. Mingfei said softly, looking away from the square. Shuzaham remained silent. That's the college cafeteria. Most of the time they serve German dishes, such as pork elbows, potatoes and sausages. That's Norton Hall, the hall of the college club and heart club. That's Amber Hall, the hall of the college club student union. Several beautiful and enthusiastic senior sisters accompanied them all the way to the boys' dormitory in Area 1 before leaving. Before leaving, they tried to get Mingfei's contact information, because Shuzaham next to him always had a cold face that said don't approach me, so they could only ask for Mingfei's contact information, and then ask for Shuzaham's through Mingfei. But Mingfei declined the enthusiastic senior sisters on the grounds that he didn't have a mobile phone. How is it? It's different from your place, isn't it? The girls in our college are very open. Fingal chuckled. But the two ignored him. After taking the luggage from the mule, they entered the dormitory gate. All they left for him was their backs and a sentence. Thank you for your hard work, senior brother. After a long pause, Finger muttered. What a pair of freaks, one with a paralyzed face, the other a fanatic. At night, the bright light of the full moon fell, and together with the night, it covered this college that looked like an ancient castle in the mountains with a more hazy and mysterious veil. But the students are still surfing intensively, of course not in the swimming pool or any physical place, but on the virtual forum. Night Watchman Forum is the official forum of Castle College, which is built by students on their own and is the most active message place. In addition to the students surfing on the forum every day, the college's interns and graduates also rely on this platform to contact the school. Later, various staff and professors also registered accounts and actively posted and interacted with the students. Among them was President Angus, whose ID was Cambridge Folding Knife and had nearly 10,000 followers. The forum was quite lively tonight. It was the freshman admission semester, and there were many topics. Most of the freshmen had mixed-race family backgrounds, had been influenced by the knowledge and culture of the dragon race, and had received the college's admission training with ease. As for the small number of students who were stepping into the other side of the world for the first time, they were probably undergoing psychological treatment at this time. Seniors, may I ask if the Burger King in the college still delivers midnight snacks? Why are all the dishes in the cafeteria German? People in Munich say they want to vomit when they see grilled white sausages. Second, while the college promotes Chinese, please let the cafeteria also promote Chinese food. 1+1, I want to eat sweet and sour fish and kung pao chicken. The black-haired, short-skirted senior sister at Odeon Square at 2:43 this afternoon, please see this post. The discussion area scrolled and refreshed, and the posts were pushed up by replies one by one, but were soon pushed down by more popular posts. A bright red post suddenly popped up and instantly rose to the top of the list. Red posts mean bounty posts, and some administrators with special permissions can also mark their posts as featured in red. The replies to this post immediately attracted the attention of everyone on the forum. In less than a second, the replies to the pinned red post were posted to more than 100 floors. A large number of users accessed the interface, causing the server to freeze. It took several seconds to refresh the page before it returned to normal. The number of messages had soared to more than 400 floors. The title of the post was, Shock. Caesar Gattuso will face his biggest rival. A rare S-level freshman appeared in a decade. He turned out to be, end of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.